that you was wrong, but life is moving on. So get it together, cause now anger is your pleasure, and that pleasure is the tether that fed you for too long. Now you're thinking that you're better, cause you think it made you strong. But what you don't get is the color of regret, is the thing that made you sweat when you try to paint a picture of life in the future, when the present's still wet with the tears that you wept long ago. Feeling the fire still, keeping your head turned around in the past, floating the present with the role that you cast for her as the villain in you who came in last. It's time to wake up.
How do you see that shaping?
Open your eyes, look,
I don't think I'm right on
you've been
this, but
sleeping. It's getting hard to bear watching you all alone. I know your heart is broken and you've been weeping, but I've been waiting here patiently for too long.
So they're kind of and that was really smart.
I know that you was wrong, but life is moving on, and the anger that you feel keeps you feeling justified, but turning a blind eye to the one that you survived with and kept you sane through the heartache and the pain. What you don't get is the color of regret, is the thing that made you sweat when you try to paint a picture of life in the future, when the present's still wet with the tears that you wept long ago. Feeling the fire still, keeping your head turned around in the past, floating the present with the role that you cast for her as the villain in you who came in last. It's time to wake up. You'll fall in love again. You'll fall in love again. Open your eyes, love, you got me crying. 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 'Cause I've been sitting here patiently for too long.
Feasibility on the course may not be etched in record books, but following around it's clear that it's not a lack of pride. We were constantly hustling behind him as he caught up with executives in the portfolio companies and reminisced with former and current players.
He was a day trader. He called himself self-made day trader. And so he's on the bus after a game and he's day trading on the bus. Spot. Many ways convention, right? For people that I don't see maybe once a year. And so it's kind of all come together. My firm, charity, fundraising efforts, and then the friends that are my dad or my brother. It all happens right there as a confluence of all these parts of my life that have found its common center.
Wish I could
manufacturing issue. It's not a design issue. So maybe not an existential threat, but the 737 MAX is Boeing's biggest revenue source, so certainly hard to ignore, Manus.
Okay, Katie. Well, it's certainly being taken to task by Michael O'Leary at Ryanair and Tim Parker over at Emirates. The CEOs of the world certainly are forming their opinion. Katie Griffin, very good. Let's turn our attention to home builders. We have Renault increasing its quarterly dividend, boosting the bottom line. Losing the market is over $5 billion. Rejoicing at Renault.
Well, certainly investors in Lennar are shares looking up 4.5% so far in early trading. The annual dividend now $2 versus the $1.50 that it had been previously. And about that buyback program, that really seems to be the focus of analysts this morning. Chairman and co-CEO Stuart Miller saying we are focusing more of our capital allocation on maximizing total shareholder returns. Barclays says this is the future positive that investors have been waiting for. The company's been shifting to a more asset-light model, as have homebuilders generally, and this is driving increased valuation in its view. This is following DR Horton raising its dividend back about 20% back in November, and the rally continues for homebuilders. We're looking at shares of DR Horton, Toll Brothers, and Pulte Group also rallying in sympathy with Lennar this morning. Seeing a recent drop in mortgage rates, that's beneficial as well. And this morning we got data out on mortgage applications rising by the most since June last week. All of this added to this narrative that just aren't that many existing homes for sale. So everyone who wants to buy a home, they gotta buy a new home. Lennar, we saw around 65% in 2023. It's already up over 50%.
Turn our attention to financials now. BlackRock announcing yesterday that they will cut 3% of the workforce. A result to massive shifts in the industry. Alex Semenova joins me now. So this is a 3% cut today comparatively significant.
Indeed, Manus, unprecedented changes in asset management. That was the message communicated by BlackRock executives to staff yesterday as they announced a fresh round of layoffs. The world's largest asset manager is cutting 600 jobs, with 3% of the global workforce. Important to note here that this isn't about downsizing, but rather a reallocation of resources to keep up with a rapidly changing industry. That CEO Larry Fink and President Rob Lanier said yesterday in the memo that they actually expect their headcount to be larger at the end of 2024. BlackRock is expected to report an increase in assets under management when it reports earnings on Friday. But more broadly, the industry has faced a record in the past 2 years. First, amid a rout in stocks and bonds back in 2022, and then last year, of course, as investors worried about higher interest rates. That's seen BlackRock and some of its peers, including Wellington Management and T. Rowe Price, and jobs redirect their budgets. BlackRock holds the one-stop shop for various cost of living, and private assets as well. Shares of BlackRock are down 17% since yesterday's close. That's after 15% last week. These gains come from 7 as investors expect of contraction in the revenues. The stock has rallied around 50% last year, but year to date, it's down.
People
It's
see
up
rock and
around
roll
4% this
as
month.
youth
For now, though,
culture,
it's down
and when
around
youth culture
0.3%.
becomes monopolized by big business,
Isabel, thank you very
what
much.
are the
Great
youth to
roundup
do?
and synopsis of the latest
Do you
downgrade.
have
So
any
earnings
idea?
season, it is upon us.
I think we should
Results,
destroy
they will be
the
pretty much
bogus
dependent on
capitalist
growth,
process
size and scale of the Fed pivot, if and when it comes, as well as the clarity on Goldman Sachs are estimating an earnings per share forecast higher than the median. In the meantime, you've got the analysts already slashing the forecast for the past 3 months ahead of the value and scale.
Growth in 2024, and I think that's really seems like
So these earnings perhaps are weaker than you think, and it comes down to that information that global outlook. Can I expect when we started, we got a group started, we were starting with you expect me to go down, maybe even, as Sarah said, the scale to be correct.
I mean, again, you saw a lot of multi-expansion in 2023. Really, where the gains came from. They did comprehensive earnings growth across the board. Now, they did certain emphasis on the video and huge earnings growth. But I think that the biggest issue is going to be what happens going forward with, again, earnings. And so, you know, we can't get away from the talking about this stuff. We've got to have a business model. We've got to have a cash flow. The question is, we're starting to see some of the rest of the market catch up with that. And we see some of that. And I think that, you know, you don't want to run away from big tech, but I don't think it's going to be as important this year as it was last year, just because you had such incredible outperformance last year.
Which may well mean that you go for slightly bigger breath on the tech. I do want to get your opinion. It's slice 3 of a go at Apple by the scribes. Today, it is Redburn downgrading. They still got a price target of $200. Piper Sandler worried about iPhone sales, and you've got Barclays going underweight on the stock. I've had various people say, oh, just load up on the dip, buy it, stack it away, and think about it as a cash generator over the next 5 years. I know you hold Apple. What can you say as this narrative builds up? It's a wall of worry, and worry can turn into something much more parabolic on the downside. I've seen it before. Is that my risk?
I'm not sure you're going to get a parabolic downside on Apple. I think it's the easiest one of the larger tech stocks to pick at right now, just because there has been, unlike a lot of the other tech companies, the earnings growth has not been there in the near term, and there's some concern about that going forward, especially on the hardware side. I think the bigger issue is, you know, you've got this ecosystem. I think the question about the regulatory issue is going to be a problem, and I think, or an issue at least for people to contend with. And I think that you still have a lot of growth on the services side, and there's incredible margins on that side. It's got an incredible, unique ecosystem that continues to grow. So it's really about owning that franchise. And right now, there's some concern where the multiple is relative to where it's been historically, a little bit, given the fact that growth really isn't there. So I think it's an easier of the big tech stocks to pick on right now. And I think that longer term we like it, but I think that you can see some digestion in the near term, especially given that moment.
You mentioned operating margins, and this is in part what the team here have been writing about, Gina Montanavans and Jimmy Wolf, talking about the disinflation narrative and the impact that can have on operating margins. Who's most susceptible? I mean, first of all, I presume or I'm assuming that you're on the disinflation train. So to that extent, how does disinflation impact margins and therefore reflect on allocation?
Well, I think that if you stay in the disinflationary trend, I would say that there are pockets where you could get issues where that's not so helpful, right? So energy could change. It hasn't changed yet, but it could. So that impacts transportation in a lot of different areas. The whole problem that's going on right now is affects transportation, and that affects pricing. On a disinflationary scale globally, it does help businesses. Those good prices come down. In fact, the labor prices are coming up. You may have a trade-off there. A big concern with goods prices aren't coming down, but as they have Washington and historically profit margins are very low at that level. So I think that that's been the issue, and whether or not that can continue, they can continue to take costs out, which is surprisingly effective at, that's going to dictate to some degree what happens in the next
That's been the biggest surprise this year. I mean, certain narratives that built up in this first 10 days. One is de-risk. Two is don't be a hero on credit. And finally, of course, it is that the Fed may not cut 6 times as the market wants. What's the biggest outlier risk in 30 seconds for you?
I think the biggest risk is where interest rates go, and I think the idea has been we're going back to this very low interest rate environment that we had to the financial crisis. Maybe not to zero, but we're certainly coming down a lot. I think if we stay at higher than this, and that's the real tension between what the Fed is telegraphing and the market expects. And I think that the fact that money has a cost may impact the market valuations that we see across many different asset classes. That's really a question that's still up in the air.
여러분 많이 놀라셨죠? 네, 중간에 매수 들어갔는데 왔다 갔다 하다 보니까 굉장히 많은 수익을 보고 있거든요. 근데 11시간이 생각보다 많이 걸렸어요. 그리고 죄송해요. 그 중간에 그 와이파이 나가리 돼가지고 라이브가 자동으로 꺼버렸어요. 그러니까 다시 이렇게 라이브를 시작했는데 역시 사람이 별로 없어서 조한씨 감사합니다. 혹시 조한씨도 올해 해보셨어요? 지금 뭐 차트산대가 완전 미쳐버려. 너무 왔다 갔다 하는데 그래도 슬슬 푸는 중.
Hear from leading economists, policymakers. Be a live and on-demand webinar, only from Bloomberg. Start exploring to see what's moving in the market. Visit Bloomberg.com.
조금이라도 수익을 보셨으면 이거야 어디죠? 얼마나 좋아요. 성에만 안 보면 되죠. 지금은 되게 좋은 텐션인데요. 일단 좋은 텐션이만큼 괜찮은 음악 좀 들어야겠다. 이거 아니겠다.
I'm Jason Kelly, a business journalist and sports fan with a couple decades covering Wall Street.
Getting involved from a business perspective was something that was very natural and easy transition for me.
오케이. 일단은 이렇게 한번 끝까지 버텨보지고 이 포지션 괜찮을 것 같다.
We set out to find what's happening and what's about to happen at the nexus of business, sports, and culture.
아니요, 매일 수익을 보는 거 아니잖아요. 어젠가? 그저께인가? 어제는 좀 많이 잃어버렸어요. 10만원 정도? 15만원? 전 달러는 안 할게요. 달러는 너무 잠시만요. 뭐야 왜 갑자기 떨어지네? 그쵸, 올라가야죠. 야, 잠깐만요. 어떻게 보고 싶었는데
They're still going to remain the preferred product of speculators, gamblers, predators, and criminals, and they're going to continue to be cesspools of fraud, manipulation, and criminality in the trading of the spot market. I think this is going to be viewed by history, and not distant history, in the next few years as we see crypto carnage hitting Main Street.
지금 무슨 상황이야, 진짜? 아니야. 일단 버티고 일단 그냥 봅시다.
Still has not released its decision on the approval of the Bitcoin ETF, but reaching the Commission's exit target said otherwise. John Garrideza quickly setting the record straight. GOP senators demanding answers over the agency's cybersecurity procedures. Irony is not
잠시만요. 이거 버티는 거 맞아요? 지금 포지션을 잡고 있는데 미치겠다 진짜. 그쵸, 역시 욕심을 버리면 안 되죠. 아니 30만 넘게 벌었는데 지금 뭐야, 나가리 됐지. 그쵸, 저도 정신없네요. 그래도 재밌긴 해요. 중독성이 장난 아니에요. 근데 지금 음식을 다 버리는 거 아닌가? 여기 너무 재밌는데? Of a spot Bitcoin ETF may very well end today, as today is the deadline that everybody is watching. But the story over the investigation into the aftermath of this unfortunate incident is probably just the beginning.
You've got to say, the hacker raises the hackers much more aggressive regulation. You know, as we go forward, it's not going to give anybody the regulator half. Clearly, thank you very much, ambassadors alongside Munshi on this story, along with Kaylee. I mean, here we are. We're waiting for the final announcement. 지금 뉴스 볼 수 있는 정신이 아닌 것 같아요. 또 업데이트 해야 되는데 일단 보시죠. 그쵸, 완전 롤러코스터죠. 물론 저는 롤러코스터 되게 좋아하긴 하는데 이런 롤러코스터는 좀 마음의 스트레스 너무 줘요. 이러다가 화병 걸리기 완전 쉽습니다. Meanwhile, to crypto land, the stocks remain the price as a result of the SEC hacking. Right though is with me. Whose pain is greatest?
Whose pain is greatest? Well, take a look at the price of Bitcoin right now on
아이고야, 이거 무슨 상황이야. 아, 희망은 아직 있긴 한데, 사실 뭐 보는 게 달라지지 않겠죠? 하늘아, 제 주방이 불이 안 났으면 좋겠어. 일단은 저 이거 못 보거든요, 지금. 마음이 너무 안 좋네요. 전 사실 그렇게 생각해요. 이럴 때는 안 보는 게 나아요. 진짜요. 그냥 근데 사실 주식은 해외 선물은 주식이랑 좀 다르긴 하는데, 주식은 진짜 그냥 놓고 안 보면 돼요. 근데 여기는 거래는 나가야 되는데, 에이씨. 아니야, 일단 안 볼게요. 안 보고 그냥 뭐 하늘이 도와주면 되고, 안 도와주면 뭐 욕하면 안 되죠, 그쵸? 방송이니까. 그러니까 일단은 제 주방이 딱이 따부르기 전에 좀 가봐야 될 것 같아요. 그러니까 이거는 운에 맡길게요. 운에 맡기고 은근슬쩍 확인하려고 올게요. 일단 주원 씨도 화이팅 하시고, 성애를 안 봤으면 좋겠어요. 일단 화이팅.
Bloomberg's chief future officer shines a spotlight on these dynamic leaders.
Today's CFO has to be much, much more than a bookkeeper.
One of the most important things is looking around the corner.
We have to let go of the traditional legacy department store.
Their impact goes far beyond the balance sheet. And on Chief Future Officer, they focus on much more than just revenues and margins.
You also have to be credible business leaders in order to really impact the business and steer the direction.
We are like biologists. We need to deeply understand the financial DNA of the company.
People just come with a playbook and say, okay, we're going to roll that. Don't do that. Think longer term.
It's an amazing time to be in this role. It's a lot more than the profit today. It's building the future of tomorrow.
Get passion, perspective, and more from the Chief Future Officers of some of the world's most influential companies. A new episode every month, only on Bloomberg. Why do the biggest names in business choose Bloomberg?
Great question. Best question I get all night.
Bloomberg, top experts, questions.
Fed speak will be the key event this afternoon for the New York Fed President John Williams, 2:15 Eastern Time, plus the deadline. We got it, the SEC vote on its spot. It's your applications.
investors who learn how to be an art conservator as well, or not?
I think in conservation and art history and liberal arts, I think differently than a lot of people that have just done finance. And also, I think I mentioned one of the things is to do conservation, you have to really do a lot of work, pre-work, before you actually do treatment. And so a lot of that pre-work is very similar to what I do with due diligence for investments. Lots of testing, lots of thinking about what could go wrong, lots of research. When I was a historian, that was in the old days before the internet. So you sit in the stacks and you pull one thing that they did on the film, and sort of like a mosaic series, which put all these things together. I feel like I do that in my due diligence.
Bloomberg has enhanced search on the terminal to deliver what you need when you need it. Now, you can use these type phrases in everyday English in the command line. Compare financials with fine people. Analyze markets. You can enter phrases or ask questions. What do you want to know today? Ask a question or visit SearchGo to find answers now.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller.
Why were the economists so wrong? What are the economists getting wrong?
Isn't this a slam dunk time to buy U.S. Treasuries?
Soft landing, hard landing, no landing. I don't know.
True. What the heck does that mean?
I don't know.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
We're going to be in an environment with higher rates for longer.
This 5-day in-office work week is effectively dead.
It's definitely a good sign that we're not ready to land this economy just yet.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Wednesday morning from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York City to our worldwide audience. A little bit of a lift here to the market. We'll get on that with Mr. John Tucker coming up. But first, we're going to check in with Ed Ludlow. He's out in Vegas. I told him to use my name at the Bellagio. Get him a good room, a good crafts table, all that kind of stuff. We'll see what's happening out there at the CES conference. It's all AI from what I understand. Neil Grossman's going to join us. He's a smart investor. We just like to talk to him about the markets, where things are going, what he's looking at, where the opportunities are. And so we'll have that. And then, boy, we've got a simulcast. I didn't know this. Matt Miller and Alex Steele interviewing Volkswagen CFO Arne Antjes.
Wait, Matt Miller's around?
I know. See, he comes out of hiding of this fraternity league. Anytime there's like a auto CEO, motorcycle CEO, he just manages to come out of the woodwork. Oh, nice. All right, very good. We'll see. That's coming up at 10:45. We'll all experience it together. But first, let's kick things off.
All right, thanks, Paul and Lisa. This Bloomberg Business Flash is being brought to you by Interactive Brokers. IBKR's redesigned Fundamentals Explorer provides comprehensive worldwide fundamentals data to clients at no cost. Take your research to the next level. Visit IBKR.com. Dow leading the indexes higher right now, getting a lift from Home Depot and shares of Boeing rebounding somewhat today. Investors pretty much in a holding pattern, waiting Thursday's inflation data with the Consumer Price Index. In the meantime, Russ Koskovich at BlackRock looking for stocks to continue to rally.
We still think the market can move higher in 2024. We do think it's going to be a little bit of a different year from last year, which was characterized by an enormous gain and a very narrow market. So this year, probably more muted gains, but a broader rally.
Right now, the S&P 500 up just 3 points, 47.59 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, pairing some of those earlier gains I was talking about, right now just up 31 points. And the NASDAQ 100, that has turned lower, 14 points lower right now. That is down to about 0.1%. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, they kick off the fourth quarter earnings season for the industry on Friday. Results likely to show that net interest margins are feeling continued pressure from higher funding costs. Also today, we could see the SEC rule on a spot Bitcoin ETF. Bitcoin right now down about 1%, 44,953 per token. And we check markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, that's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Lisa Mateo sitting in again. We appreciate that. We have no idea who he is. He pops up every once in a while and talks to an auto executive.
You know, he comes in when he needs to be here, so.
All right, so we got Lisa Mateo, you got Paul Sweeney. We're
And the
here.
fraternity thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we're here in the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. We're streaming on YouTube. So head over to youtube.com and search Bloomberg Radio. That's where you'll find the video feed here. As John was just reporting, kind of got mixed out there on the screen. Not much happening on the index level. Everything kind of unched on the day. Let's see what's happening with some individual names. Carmen Reineke joins us. She covers all the equities for Bloomberg News. Carmen, what are you looking at?
The topic that we're looking at this morning is the crypto space, these crypto-linked stocks. Obviously, we had a little bit of a false start last night when we saw, this post on X that seemed to say that the SEC had approved a spot Bitcoin ETF. Gary Gensler obviously came out very quickly and said that's not the case. But the industry has really been waiting for this. So, shares of companies like Coinbase, ticker COIN, down 4.5% right now. Marathon Digital, MARA, down almost 7%. CleanSpark, CLSK, down 6.5%. Because the whole industry is really waiting for this decision. It seems like it'll come today. So I think everyone is still watching and waiting to see what will happen. The interesting thing here also is that crypto-linked stocks, like these companies, had an incredible run in 2023. So I think weakness across the board, it's probably related to this false start that we saw yesterday, but it also could just be that people have been waiting, like the hype was really big here, and we're buying into this
Just officially, came up to us and scared us, so he's in the house.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much those prices fluctuated. When that tweet or X, whatever, just came out, how much it soared, and then when they found out it was false.
I know, there was a flurry of activity on our desks on the stocks team, looking at what happened. Everything spiked, and then very, very quickly reversed in that after-hours trading there. So, never resolved.
And my question is, and I don't know the answer, although Eric Balchunas, he opined on this, he says that there will in fact be net buying by the likes of BlackRock and others that launch their funds. So if they get the approval today, maybe tomorrow, you would see then some buying Bitcoin at some to the extent. So it'll be interesting to see how much this token moves here in price will stay up. What else you got?
Yeah, so elsewhere, so shares of Chewy, that's ticker CHWY.
Anybody a dog owner here?
I have a cat.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, in my building, we have a very angry dog. His name is Harry. He's a pit bull. He's very angry. He's got very much anger issues. But he's a big Chewy.com user. So there's Chewy.com boxes all the time. They need some dog downers.
For sure. Pit bulls are usually so sweet. So shares of Chewy are down almost 5% right now. This is actually a Bloomberg story. We reported that a shareholder priced the sale of over 12 million shares at about $20.45. So Morgan Stanley is the sole book runner of that process. So that's weighing a little bit on shares of Chewy.
So they just did a block last night after the close or something like that? Boy, I used to like doing that. We could charge 3-4% for that thing, take like 15 minutes of risk, and shoot that thing out. That's a good business to be block.
Yeah. So elsewhere, we're also looking at shares of Amazon. It's up a little bit today, up about 1.2% after a couple of reports out that the company is announcing more layoffs, so laying off hundreds of employees in Prime Video and Studios business. Bloomberg reported yesterday that Twitch, the live streaming service, was cutting 500 jobs, which is about that we saw, right? In Hollywood, I mean, Amazon didn't say that this is directly related, but that they're looking for opportunities to just be more efficient in their time and video.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obviously it's not core for them, but it is part of their strategy to get you and I to become Prime members, because if we're Prime members, we spend a lot more than non-Prime members. So how do you make Prime more attractive to consumers? Give them stuff, programming, things like that. Just so you know, I mean, Amazon just on the DES function, 1.5 million employees as of September 30th. Wow.
It's a big unit. So the last thing that I'm looking at, I mean, I would have been remiss if I didn't get to talk a little bit about other tech stocks. So NVIDIA is just having an incredible start to the year. It's up for the 5th day in a row. It's on track for another record gain, up 1.5% right now. I mean, this is like the only Magnificent Seven stock that's still kind of looking like one at the beginning of the year. It just broke out, out of a key sort of like resistance level, which was at $500 per share. So we're really watching this. A lot of bulls think that like there is totally room to run. Analysts and investors alike are pricing in, huge booming revenue growth coming up this year, and so people are still very excited.
Were you watching at Taiwan Semiconductor the results, or I think what worse, we extrapolated the results from the last quarter?
I think some of what you're seeing here, at least what I've heard from talking to investors in NVIDIA, that weakness in its competitors might actually be read as like a positive sign for NVIDIA, because it's just so strong in this space, so dominant, doesn't have a lot of competition. People are really, I guess, kind of scratching their head for headwinds for the stock. So,
I mean, I'm looking at the technicals here, well above it's above the 50-day moving average, well above the 200-day moving average. It's on the relative strength index, it sits at 71, so that's kind of right at the resistance here on the relative strength. So see if it breaks above it. It has not typically stayed above the 70 for too long for the trade. But again, phenomenal stock last year. Carmen Reinecke, thanks so much for joining us. She covers all the equity sports. All right, let's get out to Vegas to the craps table of Bellagio, the high rollers crap table, which is where I tend to sit. Ed Ludlow's out there, ostensibly at the CES conference, the Consumer Electronics Show, as I like to call it, the auto show, with some gadgets around it. Ed, what's the buzz out there in Vegas this year? Is it pretty much AI driven across the board?
Yeah, I put a newsletter or a column out this morning saying it's AI everywhere and not necessarily in the ways you'd expect. Just on something you just said, there is a heavy automotive presence here, and we can get into that. But I think there are two kind of key things. You're seeing this kind of abstract conversation around AI, and particularly generative AI, translate into real world things. So for example, I spent the afternoon yesterday with Walmart, and if you are an iOS user or you have an iPhone, you bring up your Walmart app, you no longer have to search for hot dog buns or beer specifically by brand. What you can do is go into their generative AI tool and say, I am hosting a Super Bowl weekend party. What should I buy? And it will list a complete shopping cart for you ready to go. Then you have the option to click it. So that's kind of a real world manifestation of AI. I know, what? Who needs that? Actually, it works really well.
Yes.
In the demo I
Well,
did
I like the Englishman hosting the Super Bowl party.
Guys, as you know, I am a fair weather 49ers fan. I have no interest. But it's an interesting experiment to do. The other side of it as well is that there are dozens of pieces of consumer devices or hardware where the selling point is AI, and that looks different in different ways.
That's what they're doing. And so Paul had mentioned about how there's more part of it. We spoke yesterday about this Goodyear tire that was released. And can you tell us a little bit more about this? I didn't realize that Team Goodyear was really wearing tires a lot.
Yeah, something that happened just before the pandemic is that the kind of classic car shows, think about the Detroit Auto Show or the Munich Auto Show, that kind of lost their shine. And you saw companies choose CES to be the place that they unveiled their EVs. 4 years later, that's not necessarily true. Honda did unveil its next generation EVs here. And Honda's important, right? Many Americans drive a Honda. But when I spoke to the CEO about the plan, he basically told me we don't really have a plan. We just know that sometime in 2026, this set we've shown you just now may or may not appear on US roads, which didn't fill me with confidence. And then away from that, it's all about automotive tech. Think about advanced driver assistance, driving safety, the experience in the cockpit. Mercedes were on the show with me yesterday, and they've brought a virtual assistant into the Mercedes cockpit, where you literally say to Mercedes, I'm driving home, hey Mercedes, I need to shop, go to Walmart, put some stuff in my basket. By the way, there are other retailers and big boxes available other than Walmart. That was just one example.
Right. So Ed, I mean, it's just, I know I can see from the background you're in the exhibit hall here. What's the traffic been like there, and kind of what's the makeup of the crowd? Because when I went, I was surprised at how global the attendance really is in this. We get people from everywhere coming in.
Yeah, the data gives us a good read on post-pandemic business travel and some insights to the economy, right? There are 130,000 attendees expected for this year's CES. That's up from about 115,000 last year, but it's still significantly below pre-pandemic levels in terms of footfall and attendance. The international angle is interesting. 1/3 of all attendees this year have come from overseas. And, you know, just anecdotally, when you fly into the airport, when you're waiting for a taxi, when you are in the casinos, there is a real sense that actually there is strong attendance this year, strong spend, and that business travel component is back. When I speak to sources, the reason why is very clear. It's speed dating, and I mean that seriously. If you are the CEO of a big company, or you are trying to meet with the CEO of a company, everyone's in one place for just 2 days. Get it done.
And what's the sense of, you know, one of the things I think a lot of people are trying to get a hold of, particularly investors, is, you know, this AI is such a new growth driver for technology. How much of it is incremental spending, do you think? I mean, do you hear companies saying, we're amping up our tech spending because of AI, or is it kind of replacing other tech spending? You get any sense from the companies out there?
Yeah, it's definitely a case of prioritizing rather than increasing overall spend. You know, we've seen this particularly on cloud spend, right, where a number of companies will say, okay, we have to be involved in AI, so we're adjusting the proportion that we're spending on compute power versus data storage, for example. There is really interesting ways that it manifests itself. Bear with me on this one. I spoke to L'Oreal CEO, Nicolas Hieronymus, and they have a new device. The device is in beauty stores. It registers a reading of your skin. And that sounds abstract and silly, but the reason that AI is important, that they've invested in it, they're saying that if you're a human in a store that's buying a L'Oreal product and you go up to the counter and speak to another human, there is a 9% chance that sales rep converts the sale. If you use this AI-powered machine, L'Oreal thinks that the chance of a sale increases to 73%, because the AI can give you such a convincing read on your face and suggest products directly relevant to you. So there is evidence that there's kind of very focused spend on how AI can convert sales opportunities and boost margins.
You know, I have to agree with that, because if I went to a computer and it told me I had a lot of people in the beauty show that told me the wrong shade for my face, and I walked out of there looking like an orange, and the computer told me, I think I might believe it a little bit better. Ed, wanted to talk quickly, TikTok. A lot of companies teaming up with it. Now we're hearing Google is doing it to stream those videos from your phone to TV.
Yeah, so broadly, Google's whole CES thing with the ability to take content from your cell phone and stream it to the TV, they're taking that to their play in that respect. But the TikTok tie-up, is an interesting one, because this time a year ago, we were lamenting the fate of TikTok in this country, that it was going to face seriously regulatory and government scrutiny. Now, in the space of a week, it has a deal with Peloton and it has a deal with Google to amplify the distribution of their content and also TikTok's content. And it just shows there's a bit of traction going here. And remember, you know, there are a lot of users of TikTok in this country who don't necessarily have any interest in that regulatory scrutiny that we reported so much on last year.
Hey, Ed, thanks so much for joining us. Great color, as always, from the floor of the Consumer Electronics Show out in Las Vegas. And as Ed was just reporting, boy, everybody is out there, not just tech companies, but pretty much every CEO is out there, because technology impacts their companies one way or the other, and they need to be out there. Ed Ludlow, who's the host of Bloomberg Technology, is reporting live from the event space, the event hall out there in Las Vegas. And it is a huge undertaking out there at the CES. stocks. We'll have more coming up. This is Bloomberg. Let's get some company news right now with Denise Pellegrini.
Hey there, Paul and Lisa. Yeah, we've got some headlines coming from Techland as well. Besides CES, we have more layoffs now at Amazon. Hundreds of workers. This is Prime Video and Studios. Those are where the job cuts are taking place. And this includes in that MGM unit Amazon just acquired, you remember last year. Amazon shares, they are up slightly. Boeing drama intensifying this hour. CEO David Calhoun fighting back tears, saying Boeing needs to own up after that door plug ejected from that Alaska Airlines plane.
We're going to approach this, number one, acknowledging our mistake. We are going to approach it with 100% with complete transparency every step of the way.
And Calhoun commenting there at an all-hands meeting. Big name in big tech has a new big passion. Bloomberg's Steve Rappaport has more on that story.
Mark Zuckerberg is now a cattle man, raising cows on his ranch in Hawaii. The Meta platform CEO says the animals will feed on macadamia meal and wash it down with beer, both homegrown on his estate. Zuckerberg announced his farming ambitions in an Instagram post alongside a photo of him dining on steak. The billionaire businessman writing his goal is to create some of the highest quality beef in a process that will be local and vertically integrated. Zuckerberg added, of all his projects, this is the most delicious. Steve Rappaport, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thank you, Steve. And Tesla fans have been waiting for the announcement, and it is finally here, guys. This is the EV maker's revamped Model 3 sedan. It is now available in North America. It has a new look, a few new features, including a slimmer front end.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Cautious trading ahead of the December inflation report tomorrow. The S&P 500 sits just about 40 points shy of its record at 47.96, touched a little over 2 years ago. And for this bullish narrative to play out, inflation must be seen continuing to fall back to the central bank's 2% target, according to analysts. Crypto-related stocks, they're slipping as Bitcoin retreated after the SEC chair Gary Gensler denied the agency had approved spot Bitcoin ETFs yesterday. But today, of course, is a deadline to okay spot ETF. As we look at Bitcoin right now, $408 lower at $45,018. As far as the major stock indexes, S&P 500 pairing some of the earlier gains. Right now, 5 points higher. That's up 0.1%. We're at 47.61 on the index. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 31 points, and the Nasdaq 100 right now 17 points higher. That is up 0.1%. The benchmark 10-year yield right at 4%. The 2-year yield, that is down 1 basis point. We're at 4.34. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash, Lisa and Paul.
All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Lisa Mateo, Paul Sweeney, we're live here on Bloomberg Studio, streaming live on YouTube. So head over to youtube.com and search Bloomberg Radio. All right, Lisa, I type in ECO Go, ECO, brings up the economic calendar. It's inflation data. I got some CPI mañana, and then Friday, we've got PPIs. Lots of the Fed to chew on. Let's check in with somebody who's going to be paying attention to these data. Neil Grossman, he's the co-founder and former CIO of TKNG Capital. Neil, I think my Fed has done a pretty good job here. Do you think the data this week is going to bear it out? Or, I mean, maybe they were a little bit late to the party, but I think they kind of did a decent job. But what do you think they're going to look at here this week with the CPI and PPI data?
A couple of things. Let me just go back to last week. The employment data last week, again, it continues to be surprisingly good.
Yep.
The 12-month trailing average of job creation actually went up with that number. It's about 240,000 a month, which is an extraordinary number from any historical perspective, except for the post-COVID period. And, I've been looking at next month's number. Based on the statistics I have been looking at things like claims, I think the employment sector is continuing to do very good. I wouldn't be surprised to see a very strong number next month. So from an economic standpoint, this economy continues to do reasonably well. I know that there's sectors, but even those are starting to perk up because of what's happening, right? So I'm somewhat confused about why the Fed felt in such a rush to promise rate cuts when the general economic environment is more than acceptable. We're basically at full employment, and inflation, by most measures, is still, except for the very short couple of months, right? We're still not where they're historically been their target. But when you look at the last 3 years, and you see this when you talk to people, the fact is that we're still 25 to 30% above, or whatever the price point. I think we've averaged over 5% a year, so we're about 20% above where we were 3 years ago. That's still hitting. So I think this number could be either way. I mean, last year's number was I think 0.1, so the odds are that you're not going to get any month on month. You might get a little deterioration. The next couple of months, for what it's worth, are likely to see somewhat lower headlines than last year, February and March. The real question ultimately is I know the Fed has made it clear that to them, getting to 2% a year, 2% is panacea. I don't understand why that's sufficient. They need to get to that level and make sure that prices stabilize at those levels for an extended period of time. It doesn't really do you very much good to get to a level and find out because you've provided too much liquidity and started easing that prices are going to start to rise.
Now about goods prices, issues in the Red Sea, we've been hearing a lot about it, possibly could affect supply chains. When will we start to see that? Or maybe if, we will start to see that, will it affect any numbers in the reports?
I'm sure it'll have some effect. I mean, any goods that were being shipped through the Red Sea and now we're making the long trip have a higher cost and more insurance. But I don't know how much of a total. I mean, you'd have to look at historical times, but whether that's going to be the be-all and end-all to make more than a tenth or so of an impact. Oil, of course, on the other hand, could become a big problem. And the bigger issue is does this begin to escalate in a broader sense? And that would be, of course, a big problem.
What did you make, Neil, of that big move we saw in the financial markets there in the last 10 weeks? Last year, we had the S&P rip 15%. We had 10-year go from 5% to 3 and change. What's going on out there?
Well, again, I think it's all tied to interest rates, right? I'm going to forget which exact meeting it was. It was in October. Mr. Powell, our Chairman Powell, started to lay the groundwork for changing their tune. And then,
do you think he made a mistake? Do you think he meant to do that, do you think? Or did he miss it?
Well, based on this December testimony, yes, he did. I mean, I think we talked about this last time. I almost fell off the chair when he sort of said, it's a bad idea for us to wait till we get to target until we start doing something, because that means we're like overshoot. Although I don't understand why anyone sort of said about 1.75% inflation rate. The other question I think we talked about, and I don't know if you thought about it, but I took away from that, it's quite possible that speech is also designed to redefine what the target is. I mean, we spent the last 3 years talking about whether 2% should be the right rate, and for the last 2 years, Mr. Chairman has been saying we don't want to talk about that. Maybe they're laying the groundwork for arguing that the economy should operate at a higher rate of inflation than 2%. If that's the case, you sort of understand why an asset class that thrives on inflation, or more than modest inflation, with a lower rate environment might be very happy, at least in the short run. The question is, in the long run, is this going to be very good? I don't know.
And where do you see about shelter inflation? I mean, that's the largest component of the index. Where do you see that for tomorrow?
I don't know what the number is going to be for tomorrow. I do think, I mean, look, they've been talking about the owner's rent equivalent rent having embedded, lags and are likely to come down. But you can look at a few other things. The problem is we do have a significant housing shortage in this country, and number one. Number two, this drop in rates, you're already seeing it in mortgage refinancing, and you're starting to see a pickup in housing activity. So you're likely to see, with that sort of combination, prices have a bias towards starting to rise again, which, we'll see what that leads to. Again, the question is, are we really in a healthy inflation environment where this is just going to stay low and not go anywhere, or is the combination of excess liquidity from the Fed? I mean, financial conditions in the last 10 weeks have, as you were saying, just have eased, and they're about as easy as they've ever been. The government still continues to spend staggering sums of money, and so it seems to me that there is a risk that they provided the conditions appropriate to have a higher inflation environment.
All right, so we ended up 2023 better than most people would have thought. Certainly we get something in here. What do we do this year? Where's the opportunity?
Look, you've got a handful of stocks that are essentially responsible for a large part of the move.
Although we saw that breadth
Sure,
broaden out towards the end of the year.
and tied to rates. So if we are going to be in a benign inflation environment, the government manages to stay out of the way of causing problems, I suspect that you're going to continue to see the broader echelon of stocks do better. Certainly the risk-adjusted returns are probably going to be a lot better.
So, I mean, I guess one of the issues is just simply, I don't know, 2-year Treasury, 4.3%. Is that still a trade for people?
Yes. In fact, actually, from my perspective, the interesting trade in the rate markets is actually a curve steepener. I'm not as clear as to why the long market end of the yield curve continues to do what it's doing. Even if the Fed's going to get, even if inflation's coming down a bit, you have absolutely no term premium. And so it seems to me that one of the trades I've been playing with is exactly that. And if you go way back, I mean, it's not uncommon for the yield curve to have 200, 300, or 400 points of steepness in it, and particularly with the government's funding issues continuing to rise and to continue to place paper, one would expect that if you have an easier Fed, that you're going to have the long end take the brunt of that.
What's new at the vineyard?
Well, last year was an unusual year. We ended up with a major frost last May, so I didn't have a lot of grapes, but the 22s are going to go into bottles soon, which should be spectacular.
Road trip.
Anytime you want.
Exactly. And so what do you do here in January? You drink. Okay, exactly. Very good.
What kind of question was that?
No, actually, you don't have to do too much. Volumes are pretty basic. Okay. There's nothing to go on. Starting around March, you start to prepare, and then sometime in late April, or May, you get that break, and then the real work's not.
All right, Neil Grossman, co-founder of TKNG Capital, joining us here for some smart discussion of the markets and of the wine business. Right now, let's head down to, where are we going to go to? Denise Pellegrini, she's got her, no. Amy Morris down in Washington, D.C. has got world and national news.
All right, thank you, Paul. The latest on the grounded Boeing 737 MAX 9. Boeing CEO David Calhoun says the company will have to face its own shortcomings as it's dealing with the door blowout on last week's Alaska Airlines flight.
We're going to approach this, number one, acknowledging our mistake. We're going to approach it with 100% investigating the accident itself.
Spending caps.
Looking at about $1.6 trillion spend in discretionary spending, and plus Congress members of the House and Senate saying that we will look at some securing our southern border and making sure that that is taken care of. Then writing another check to Joe Biden to continue his general.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, though, and acknowledged there's just not enough time to resolve these spending differences before the deadline. Hunter Biden has arrived on Capitol Hill to attend a committee meeting, holding him in contempt of Congress. Republicans taking the first step toward holding the president's head in contempt after he declined congressional subpoena. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it. Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg Politics.
All right, Amy Morris, thank you so much. We appreciate that. We are going to be in just moments bringing you a conversation. Matt Miller and Alex Steele's going to have a conversation with the CFO of Volkswagen. So that'll be coming up in just moments, and we'll bring that to you. In your interim, we just want to get a little preview, because again, if you go on your Bloomberg terminal, you type in ECO to get the economic calendar, you're going to see we have some inflation data coming this week. CPI tomorrow, PPI on Friday. Certainly something that the Federal Reserve is looking at. Michael McKee joins us. He covers all the economic stuff for Bloomberg News, Bloomberg Television. He joins us here in our studio. Michael, what do you think we're going to see tomorrow, Friday? What do you think the Fed's going to really looking at?
I was just doing a piece for Bloomberg Radio, a few minutes ago, and I said that kind of the question tomorrow is who's going to care?
Okay.
And I don't mean that in the sense of it's irrelevant. The Fed isn't going to really care because they've already told us they're going to hold steady, and by the time they have their next meeting, they'll have 3 more CPI reports. So it isn't going to make much of a difference to them, but it could make a difference to the bond market because we should see headline CPI rise a little bit, basically because inflation was so low in December of 2022 that just the base effects make that happen. The core is expected to go down, but last week we saw in Europe when the headline went up and the core went down, the bond market kind of freaked out a little bit. The futures market, those betting on ECB rate actions, changed their views of how often and how early the ECB would move. So you, I suppose, could see that here if people get nervous about what it means. Now, it hasn't been talked about enough, and we know for a fact, right, that everybody on Wall Street who trades bonds is listening to this program. That this is already in the price, and we'll see.
Gotta hit the button. CPI.
I can hear you.
There you go. What sectors are you expecting to drive the most?
Well, the headline number will be driven in large measure by gasoline because gasoline prices going down and they've continued to go down. They have a big impact on it. Then in the core, which also goes in the middle, but you're looking at cars, used and new cars. Those have been falling. It'll be interesting to see what happens with airfares. Airfares have been falling because this is not the time that people pack up all over Europe for their summer vacation. Hotel rooms, this is also not a big travel business time, so we can see hotel rooms fall in price, and all that could contribute to the lower core rate. Then the question is what happens. The big question is always what happens to real estate, because prices have been going up, and the expectation is that they will go down because price activity has dropped off. There's a shortage of houses and supply and demand. Home prices have stayed high, and this is all measured through rents. The red prices have stayed high. So unless that comes down a lot, we're not going to see a major change in what people are forecasting.
Where are we with just the recession call, the ever-present recession call? Has that kind of been really put on the back burner? We heard
It has been
Yep.
put on the back burner. Right now, most economists think we're going to avoid one. Forecasts have ranged from about 1.5% growth this year to 2.5% which is not a recession. Not as good as it was, but it's not a recession. So at this point, people are kind of looking past that.
All right, very good. Michael McKee, thank you so much for joining us here again. We got some inflation data coming over the next couple of days. We'll stay on top of that. Michael McKee covers all the economics for Bloomberg News in just moments. We're going to bring you some interesting car talk if you're over there, the CFO of Volkswagen, talking about the auto business transition to EV. It's something that Volkswagen, as all the OEMs, are dealing with here. Talking about the business in China, EV makers very competitive there. Some weakness in sales of some of these ones. I'm not sorry, in China as well. Here, and of course, it'll be Volkswagen is such a global player that it has ramifications for the whole industry. So we're going to join now our colleagues Alex Steele and Matt Miller for a conversation with Volkswagen's CFO Arne Antlitz. We'll join that right now. Take a listen.
We welcome now our Bloomberg TV and radio audiences. We have been talking about all the AI innovations that's on offer at CES. So now we want to turn to innovations in the EV space and what's going to encourage more people to actually plunk down money to buy them. I'm joined now by Arne Antlitz, Volkswagen Group CFO and COO. Volkswagen is home to portfolio brands of Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, and Bentley. And Bloomberg's Matt Miller is also here, back from paternity leave for one time only. Matt, by the way, congratulations. It's so good to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be back, and I'm happy to talk to Arno. I have a long history with Volkswagen myself as a driver, as a fan, and the brand here. I mean, I've been to the factory in Chattanooga. I've been to Wolfsburg, obviously a lot in Germany as well. But the brand here hasn't really picked up in the way I would have expected with some of the new products we've had in the past few years. How do you plan to build a bigger presence in America?
No, thanks for having me here, and it's a great question. Look, where are we coming from? Look, as you said, we have some of the broadest and most fascinating brand portfolios in the industry: Porsche, Lamborghini, Bentley, Volkswagen, Ducati as well. We have a market-leading position in Europe. We have a strong position in China, but yet we have only 4% in the US in terms of market share, and 5% in North America. So what's the reason? You need great products to be successful locally, but you also need scale. And in the combustion engine world, we never really had the scale. And now the market is turning electric, and this is a great opportunity for us to grow. We have all the ingredients we need to grow successfully. We have great products with great heritage. We have the technology. We decided on a local battery capacity in Canada, Ontario, which will be very competitive. We have the financial resources and the will. So this is really our time to grow. And there's also, in addition to that, there's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with our new brand, I would say new brand Scout, to enter one of the most promising segments in America, the C pickup, with an all-electric car. So
what, can you give us any more details on that? I mean, International Harvester Scout, it's a very storied 4x4 from the 60s, and it's been away for a long time now. Scott Keogh, who ran Audi and Volkswagen here in the U.S., is taking over that project. When are we going to see the first ones on the road? Where are you going to get your battery supply for that?
No, I mean, as enthusiastic about the project as you. Scout has a great heritage. It will be an all-electric pickup truck in the C pickup segment, and also a B rugged SUV. Actually, I saw the designs just before Christmas. They are great. It's a really great car with a lot of heritage, but also very modern. It looks pretty similar to the original Scouts. We will produce it in North America. We will spend $2 billion dollars in investment. The capacity will be about 200,000 a year in South Carolina. And we get the batteries from Ontario, from Canada.
Are people going to buy them? What has been so striking is the lack of real pickup once you get the early adopters. Like, where is all the demand?
No, you're quite right. We see some reluctance right now in Europe, perhaps also in the US. Early adopter board already, and now it's the next wave of customers. And of course, it depends on charging infrastructure. Is it there? Is it enough charging infrastructure? Of course, of pricing. We have quite high raw material prices, so prices for EV are high. But we are convinced that in the long term, the market will be electric, and we have the great product. We will, by 2030, we will have 30 all-electric cars in the US. A lot of them localized.
I wonder about if you can give us more details about the battery production, because I know PowerCo, which is one of your investments in battery production, is breaking ground on this first North American plant in Ontario. You mentioned you'll get your batteries for the Scout there, but Scout's supposed to come out before you'll be producing batteries there. So where will the power come from?
No, Scout will be one of the first cars who get the batteries from PowerCo. There might be a small part where we will have to bridge some battery supply from Europe, but Scout will definitely be part of the customer group. And to elaborate a little bit more on our strategy, as you mentioned, so we are convinced that having our own battery supply in the company is very important. And it has really three pillars. One, a unified cell, then our own production, and we secure our raw materials. And this will lead to a very competitive offer in terms of battery. And Scout will be basically one of the first customers of that plant in Ontario.
You mentioned the investment there, $2 billion, and overall, Volkswagen Group has always had the most eye-popping numbers in terms of EV investment. From when D started until now with Bluma, I think you're planning on putting $130 billion into EV and digitalization. Are you still pushing ahead that hard? Because, demand for EVs has fallen off. There's even a little bit of backlash, as Alex mentioned.
This is a great question. Exactly as you mentioned. Our total spend, R&D CapEx combined for the next 5 years in 180 billion, and 130 billion of that is going into electrification and digitalization of our products. We're still absolutely committed to ramp that up, of course, but we also built in some certain flexibilities. So about a third of the upfront investment goes into combustion engine car still. So we have a flexible strategy to keep our combustion engine cars competitive. So on the way, and we are fully convinced that the future will be electric, on the way, our strategy is rather flexible and provide also robustness and flexibility.
This might be a really dumb question, but that just means like you're going to put money into ICEs and then you're going to take some of that money and put it into EVs, and it's going to be like an easy shift. That doesn't sound very easy.
It's not an easy shift. What I said, from the 180 billion, about a third still goes into projects like keeping our combustion engine cars absolutely competitive, basically the last generation. So we will have a range of very competitive and great electrical cars, and we will have a range of still very competitive combustion engine cars. So, and eventually it's up to the customer to decide. So this is when I was talking about flexibility. So this strategy is a little bit more costly, but it will give us the flexibility in the years to come going forward. But don't get me wrong, the future will be electric, that's clear.
I want to get back to the brand, the Volkswagen brand specifically, and here in the U.S. People think of Audis as, very technical, cutting-edge vehicles. BMW, obviously, the ultimate driving machine. Mercedes, very luxurious in terms of service. What does Volkswagen mean to the consumer?
First and foremost, Volkswagen is a great brand. It's a loved brand. It has a great heritage. Think of the Transporter, think of the Beetle. And we will bring this heritage into the future. Volkswagen is also about democratization of innovation. For example, you mentioned the CES. From summer onwards, summer 2024 onwards, we will be, I think, one of the first OEMs at Volkswagen to bring ChatGPT in the car. You can talk to the car. So this is about Volkswagen.
I wonder what your relationship with the unions is going to be like here. We've just had, obviously, the end to a long and painful strike for Ford and GM as well as Stellantis, and now they're pushing in or trying to push into BMW and Tesla and other foreign automakers here. Volkswagen, obviously in Chattanooga, and you're talking about the Scout Factory as well. Will you work with the UAW? How do you see that playing out?
Look, we have a great factory in Chattanooga. We have a great workforce there, more than 500,000 very skilled and motivated people. And they have great working conditions there. So we make sure they have great working conditions. They can participate and decide also in the factory without intermediate third party. Of course, we respect our right of our workers to vote. But as said before, we have very good working conditions, very good pay. So this is where we stand.
You don't have to pay them more?
We actually increased already by about 11% some weeks ago.
Well, listen, it was really great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. Matt, it's really great to see you. Thank you for bringing the interview to us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well,
all right, that was Matt Miller and Alex Steele of Bloomberg Television sitting down with Volkswagen CFO Arne Antlitz, talking about the future of Volkswagen, talking about its commitment to electric vehicles. They continue to be committed there, and they're going to continue to invest in the transition to electric vehicles. So some good discussion there. We appreciate getting that from our good friends at Bloomberg Television. Right, let's get a little bit of a reset to this market. We'll head over to John Tucker to get Bloomberg Business Flash.
Yeah, real quick. Doesn't look like there's a lot of commitment on the part of traders ahead of the key inflation report, the CPI that we get tomorrow, Thursday morning. S&P 500 right now is 10 points higher. That's up 0.2%. We're at 47.67 on the index. Remember, 47.96, that's the number to watch. That would be the record for the broader index. Dow Jones Industrial Average, that is up 71 points right now. That is up 0.2%. 37,597 on the index. And the NASDAQ 100 right now up 57 points. That's a rise of 0.3%. 10-year yield holding right at 4%. The 2-year more policy reactive there. That's down 1 basis point at 4.34. Now we'll check markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Lisa, Mateo, and Paul Simon, we're here. That John gave me the Business Flash. Let's get an update on world and national news. And we can do that down in Washington, D.C.
All right, thank you, Paul. Republican presidential candidates Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are taking the stage tonight. It's a one-on-one debate. Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Fordern is watching.
It's going to be a big test, really, of how far DeSantis and Haley are going to go in attacking Trump, who's deciding to skip this debate. He skipped all of them. And he's doing a big counter-programming because he's going on Fox News, where a lot of Republicans traditionally watch, and making his final pitch before these Iowa caucus goers to come out and vote for him.
Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Fordern reporting there. A new poll shows DeSantis trails most of the Republican field just 2 weeks before New Hampshire's presidential primary. The University of New Hampshire survey finds support for DeSantis among likely GOP primary voters around 5%. Former President Trump leads the field with 39%, followed by Nikki Haley at 32%. A federal appeals panel in Washington could soon decide whether former President Trump is immune from prosecution over his actions on January 6th. Bloomberg Government's Jonathan Tamari reports the justices did not seem to buy into Trump's claims at oral arguments yesterday.
We were waiting to see they could rule very quickly, possibly as soon as this week. And then once that happens, if they rule against Trump, they'll still have a chance to appeal up to the Supreme Court. So there's still a number of steps to take here, but it did not look good for him.
Bloomberg Government's Jonathan Tamari in the nation's capital. And the House Armed Services Committee is launching an investigation into Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's secret hospitalization. Republican Mike Rogers says Austin must provide information about whether he directed his staff to keep his hospitalization under wraps. Austin was admitted to intensive care last week from complications from prostate cancer treatment. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg. Paul and Lisa.
Amy Morris, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Mateo Paul Simon live here in our Bloomberg Interactive office. Darkening the door, as Tom Keene would say. Fresh from eternity, Matt Miller in the house. Matt, I saw you and Alex sat down and were chatting with the CFO of Volkswagen. I mean, he seems pretty committed to this EV thing.
Yeah,
they are all in on it.
That was surprising to me as well. I mean, he is, first of all, Arne Antlitz has a very big job. He is the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operating Officer of the Volkswagen Group globally. So they brands. They have not only Volkswagen, but Skoda and Seat, which are more European brands. They have Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, Bentley, Bugatti, Ducati. So he's got a lot on his plate, but he's really focused right now on trying to build up the Volkswagen brand, the actual VW that makes the Golf and the Jetta, in the U.S., because it just doesn't have a very big presence here.
Which one of those have you driven?
I've driven almost every car I just mentioned, I think, or a car from each of those brands at least. I've only driven one Bugatti, but it was an amazing experience. With
that's not a car; that's a piece of artwork.
That is 16 cylinders, 4 turbochargers,
Who needs 16
1,500 horsepower, and I drove it around the track with the CEO in Bilsterberg in Germany. It was amazing, amazing, and that was a special edition $3.4 million car, so I was very careful with it.
Yes, very careful. So, VW said they've got all those brands. They're a global company. Where does growth for them come from?
Well,
So
here is
Okay.
where they want to see growth. They did see, as a group, an 18% gain in total sales last year. So not too shabby, right?
Yep.
But the problem is they want more, obviously, out of the Volkswagen brand, and they want to sell more EVs. Like you said, their commitment is real, right? They're investing about $130 billion into EVs and digitalization. Just massive numbers. They're one of the biggest car makers in the world. Often they are the biggest car maker in the world. And they're fully committed to bringing on like 30 new models by 2030. So they need the consumer to still buy these electric vehicles. And as you know, that hasn't been going so well lately.
Right. Is that going to happen? That's the question. All this, money that they're putting in, will it happen?
Demand for EVs has really been slowing. Once the early adopters have gotten their cars, and once the rich people have value signaled with their third electric vehicle. I'm in the Ford F-150 Lightning this week.
Oh, you are?
Probably the one you drove.
Probably the one I drove.
It's a red one,
Yep.
It's very fast. It's very capable, but the reality is if I were to buy it and put it in my driveway, I would need to get some kind of charging infrastructure installed, and I would have to go and find an Electrify America that isn't broken and doesn't have a long waiting line. It's just not a commitment I'm willing to make right now, and a lot of other Americans are saying the same thing for $80,000 or $90,000, which that truck is, the top of the line model, but it's just too big.
So what are the car companies saying? Mary Barra's still out there, the Ford's still out there, the VW guys are still committed. They can't go back, can they?
I think it's, I just had my second baby, right?
Yes,
And
right.
I was over talking with some producers, and they were like, what do you think about this experience? And I thought, well, I can't go back. I'm already fully committed, so I have to raise this child. And I think, in a sense, that's what the car makers are feeling like about electric vehicles. They've already dumped tens of billions of dollars in EVs. They've already shifted their plans. Car making isn't something that you can change on a dime. It's a big ship. It's not a little boat. So they're already full in, and they just have to convince the consumer to
What about all the factories? Can they do this turnaround? Can they turn these places into makers?
Yeah, well, Arno was just telling me about they've broken ground on their South Carolina plant for Scout. The International Harvester.
Yes.
Some of us are old enough to remember these 4x4s from the 60s and 70s that were so cool back in the day, but then disappeared for a few decades. They bought the brand. They're making it. They've already broken ground on the factory. Ford has already broken ground on a new factory for electric trucks in Tennessee. These car makers, they've already put the money down. They've already hired the people. They've already designed the vehicle. They're in. They can't stop it now.
So what do you think? You're the car person. You have a podcast.
Yes.
Hannah Elliott, right?
Thank you for mentioning. Why don't I plug my podcast?
Oh,
So
brother.
what do you
it's called Hot Pursuit. Hannah Elliott are a luxury
Oh, you're still
car
doing it
reviewer.
while you're on the...
Yes, I do it. That's the one thing I'm allowed to come in and do every week, which is why I'm here today. So it comes out Saturday mornings, and Hannah talks about her luxury cars, and I usually talk about trucks and muscle cars, and we try and convince one another. But
But what do you guys think about how this EV transition will go? How do you get that next layer, the beyond the first mover people, the tech people? Is it really the charging station? Is it?
You know what? To me, I think you could liken it to the .com bubble, right? right? Everybody was all in on tech and the internet in 98 and 99. And in 2000, it was like you couldn't sell that stock. But if you held on to Amazon, guess what? A few years later, or a decade later or two, you're a happy camper. So eventually, it's going to happen, but there are going to be fits and starts and some painful times.
Yeah, because I think the premium now for going electric is too much for me.
Yeah,
Wait. How's the baby? Please. This is what I want to do.
Baby Lola. She's just turned 6 weeks old, and she does nothing but, like eat, poop, and throw up. So
That's what they're supposed to do.
yeah, I check to see that she's breathing every 5 to 10 minutes, and I don't get a lot of sleep.
That's right. Well, now she's got an older sister, Edna. What does Edna think of Lola?
Edna says that she loves Lola, but the violence with which she handles the baby concerns me, and she's never behaved.
I think it's time for a boy.
No, I'll never ever do this again. I feel like, when you do the first one, it's so magical that you get through the tough times just on sheer joy. But when you have the second one, the joy and the magic is kind of gone. So you're like, wait, why did I do this? I can't understand anybody who makes the decision to have a third child.
Exactly.
I'm never doing it again.
Congrats. Yeah, congrats.
Someone with 4 children. So anyway, all right, Matt, great to see you again, my friend. We'll see you at some point in the future, I'm sure. Matt Miller, check out that interview with Arno and the podcast.
Check out Hot Pursuit.
Yes, with Hannah Elliott. She is a luxury car person. Great social media on her as well. She's got great stuff on there. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller.
Why were the economists so wrong? What are the economists getting wrong?
Isn't this a slam dunk time to buy U.S. Treasuries?
Soft landing, hard landing, no landing. I don't know.
True. What the heck does that mean?
I don't know.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
We're going to be in an environment with higher rates for longer.
The 5-day in-office work week is effectively dead.
It's definitely a good sign that we're not ready to land this economy just yet.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, coming up in this hour, we're going to check in with George Ferguson. He's a senior analyst. He covers aerospace, defense, the airlines. We're going to get the latest on what's happening with Boeing, because I have to fly Boeing 737-900 on Friday. I'm not sure my birds will be flying here, so I need the latest from George here. And then we're going to check in at the CES. Mark Douglas, he's the CEO of Mountain, is going to join us from Vegas. He's going to be joined by Mark Penn, President Stagwell, former Chief Strategy Officer at Microsoft. So those are smart people. They're at Vegas. They're going to give us the latest of what's happening. First, let's kick things off this hour. Mr. John Tucker.
All right, Paul and Lisa, traders in something of a holding pattern ahead of tomorrow's inflation data. The CPI out at 8:30 Wall Street time. Right now, you had 5 of the 11 major industry groups in the S&P 500 higher. Communication services in the lead, and that's where you're going to find shares of Meta and Google's parent, Alphabet. Craig Johnson at Piper Sandler sees the relationship, the leadership in the market starting to change to some lesser-known stocks.
2024 to us looks like we're entering an HLTR, or a high-level trading range, where this market is probably just going to end up consolidating. And as the market consolidates, the Mag 7 stocks are going to become the Lag 7 stocks. And we're going to see more mid and small cap stocks really start to pick up and perform.
Right now, the S&P 500, 11 points higher. That's up 0.3%. 47.68 on the index. 47.96. That's the number to watch for a record. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 65 points. That's up 0.2%. The Nasdaq 163 points higher right now. That's up 0.4%. The yield space, the 10-year, right at 4%. Did get some data, mortgage demand across the U.S. picking up during the first week of 2024. Industry data showing mortgage applications posting the sharpest weekly increase in more than a year. And still have our eye on the oil space right now. NYMEX crude at 72.13. That's down about 0.2%. Traders weighing escalating violence in the Red Sea. So bottom line there in the oil market, the energy market, it's volatile. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. a sense that maybe he's going stir crazy at all?
Just a bit. Any excuse to get out the house.
So I think he's done with the second. If we have a third in the Miller family, it will be an oops situation, I think. So we'll have to see. But anyway, Lisa Mateo, Paul Sweeney, we're live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. We're streaming live on YouTube, so check us out there. You can search Bloomberg Radio. A little bit of green on the screen. Not a whole lot happening here. We got some inflation data coming tomorrow and Friday. Then we've got some big bank earnings on Friday, which will kick us off, and that'll certainly be a catalyst for this market. So we'll stay on top of that. Right now, let's check in with Jess Menton. She covers all the markets for Bloomberg News. She writes about the markets often, which we love to feature her reporting here on Bloomberg Radio. Jess Menton joins us here. Jess, what are you looking at?
I gotta say, it was good to see Matt Miller,
Yes.
though, right? I feel like maybe we'll see him more now as he tries to get out of the house with all the kids. But taking a look at the 10-year, so creeping back below 4%, so you are seeing what JT was talking about earlier. Obviously, the S&P 500 turning higher here. It's only about 0.6% away from that all-time high. So 47.96, 56 is the level that it needs to cross in order to close the all-time high that was last reached about a little over 2 years ago, though. If you look under the S&P 500 for the industry groups, consumer discretionary is the leader here, up close to 1%, though. If you look on the opposite in there, energy down about 1%. On the other side, obviously, that inflation that we've seen with oil prices. Some of these individual movers, though, Lennar, Elian, Nursing Home is up about 3.5% on the East Coast best day since mid-December. So it did announce that it did increase its quarterly cash dividend to 50 cents per share, and then it also authorized a boost to the stock repurchasing program up to an additional $5 billion. And that's something that actually I had a story in the terminal that went over the weekend on Sunday that I was taking a look at what the outlook for buybacks could potentially mean for this year. So when you're looking at the terminal, actually companies in the S&P 500 spent nearly $800 billion on buybacks in the past 12 months. So that's down about 20% from the same period a year earlier. But obviously we had those record buybacks in 2022, not surprisingly, because companies were sitting on so much cash because of what happened with the pandemic. So it's going to be interesting to see this earnings season what banks particularly are going to say. Usually they're companies, though, people wait. We don't always get their buyback data whenever they do report, but it is interesting to hear executives like Jamie Dimon and others and what it means for some of the stipulations when it comes to some of the controls from the Fed, what they can do for those banks.
So, I mean, I'm looking at your article from 2 days ago about the buybacks here. So when rates are higher, they're just a little bit more reluctant to buy back.
Part of that was because it prevented companies from wanting to take on debt. So for the last 5 quarters, buybacks have actually fallen, but that could potentially change a little bit in 2024. So the outlook for this year is that buybacks will increase once again, but it might not just be at those record levels that we would have seen in 2022. But it's the whole idea of the potential for there to be rate cuts, so then it would be easier for companies to take on that new debt in order to repurchase stock.
I mean, you've got this chart in your, and folks, if you go to the Bloomberg terminal, Bloomberg.com, and look at Jess Menton's reporting here on the market. I mean, some of the companies that are buying back stock over the past 12 months, Apple, $77.6 billion.
And that's even a little bit lower than we had the prior year, but still like quite a number there. And then we also look at what happened with Alphabet Meta. So if you combine those three over the last 12 months, both of those, all three of those companies have been more than $60 billion.
And the other, I mean, it's still on there, but the other things that jump out at me are the energy economy. ExxonMobil and Chevron, huge buyback.
And they're expected to continue that growth. So prepare for those two companies in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we'll have JP Morgan and some of the other big banks like Wells Fargo on Friday, and then of course United Health and Delta also.
You know, when I see the buybacks, I'm like, there's another refinery or something, or LNG or something like that. But I think they respond like, no, we really can't, because the regulatory environment is such that it's tough to build new infrastructure in this country, so we just buy back stock.
And that was something last summer a lot of companies were also putting more money into CapEx. So that's an optimistic sign when you think about
about $11 billion yes, Comcast cable and broadband businesses. Thanks so much. We appreciate that. Jess Menton covers all the equity. She and Rankin. Lots of good reporting every day on equities, markets, trends going on there. So check out about Boeing here. This is really, I mean, I love this company because to me, it's always seemed like a real symbol of American engineering, ingenuity, leadership. You think about the amazing facility they have out there in Seattle when you're driving on the highway from the SeaTac airport in Seattle. You just kind of pass it by. It's just mile after mile after mile of their facilities there. And jets all over the place. Just amazing. But boy, they've had some real challenges over the last 5 years, and the latest being with this 737 MAX jet with the side door. George Ferguson, he's a senior aerospace and airline analyst. He follows this company very, very closely. George, what are we hearing from the company today about where they are in terms of, I guess, kind of getting these birds back in the air here, and maybe kind of what their thinking is about what happened?
So I think we're still waiting to hear from the regulator, from the FAA, on an agreement on the inspection plan to get the airplanes back into the air. It's a fast-moving story, so I may have missed something last couple of minutes, but I still think we're doing the inspection plan. Yesterday, what I think we heard was following the next meeting, CEO Calvin told the employees that they had a strong mistakes. I think that's what he said. So outside of Detroit there, but I think that's the latest for us. The biggest issue is will this spread past the 737 MAX 9? And if it goes and we end up having to park it for the MAX 8 fleet, that would be a major issue. Right now, we don't see that happening. It looks like it's not going to interrupt deliveries, I think, for 2024 in the form it is right now, and that's what we're watching very closely too. That in fact, for deliveries, well, so
Yesterday we heard from CEO Dave Calhoun, who was basically kind of fighting back tears. He was kind of owning up to the company's shortcomings. What was the reaction to that? What did people think about his reaction? And also, we haven't heard from the supplier much as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from the supplier put out a press release, I think it was Monday morning, although Spirit Aerosystems, the supplier, we're not sure that it necessarily happened at Spirit Aerosystems. They do make the fuselage. We do believe they put the plug in there. Boeing may take the plug out to load the airplane. So they seem to be much slower in doing much of anything than Boeing. Because if you look at probably fair Boeing's airplane, and I think it was interesting to see. I think that at the end of the day, everybody's still going to figure out where the problem is, how far it reaches, and what the financial, what the travel impact is. So there wasn't a lot new in it, just that it seemed like maybe he was indicating that it was going to be Boeing's fault and Boeing's supplier's fault.
So at the end of the day, George, Boeing's the name that's on the plane here. I mean, what's the feeling within the aerospace circles that you travel in, George? I mean, I know you go to all the air shows, you talk to all these buyers, the folks that lease these planes. Does Boeing have a real fundamental engineering/manufacturing problem, do you think?
I think that sense is in the aerospace circles that there is a fundamental problem. In this case, I would say it's not so much engineering. The engineering is really around the MCAS system. In this case, it's a fundamental manufacturing problem. But I mean, those are the two most important things they do every day, right? They engineer aircraft and then they build them and send them out to the fleet. But definitely, we've had a number of problems in the manufacturing process, either at suppliers at Spirit, or even up at Boeing. We had to pull through some massive rudders of aircraft that came out in the news over the holidays. It really feels like the stability isn't there in the build process, and it's something that Boeing really needs to get, really its arms around quickly. I mean, I thought they would have felt this way mid-year last year. Everyone talking supply chain. You'd think they've been digging into Spirit Aerosystems, digging into all their suppliers to make sure there's stability there. It's a very, very challenging process. There are lots of suppliers, there are lots of parts that get put together to make an airplane. but I think this just re-emphasizes that they really have to do with suppliers and make sure there's stability in the manufacturing process. They need to secure recovery
여러분, 전 돌아왔습니다. 이거 보세요. 역시 안 보는 게 답이었어요. 아, 보기 좋네요. 수익이다. 근데 잠시만요. 프로그램 일단 나가리 됐지.
And if something is amiss at Boeing, I think it does not bode well for Americans. I wouldn't be surprised.
봅시다. 나스닥 있고, 와, 이거 진짜 이게 뭐야? 이게 도대체 무슨 상황이야 지금? 아, 재밌네, 재밌어. 그쵸, 이거야말로 롤러코스터네요. 아니요, 아쉬울 게 뭐 없어요. 그래도 수익이죠. 수익이면 아쉬울 게 전혀 없어요. 사실은 로또보다 더 많이 벌어요. 제가 거의 매주 로또를 사거든요. 근데 1년 동안 5,000원 벌었어요. 5,000원 벌었는데 역시 로또는 저랑 안 맞아요. 근데 여기는 재밌어요. 그쵸, 아마 내일 그 CPI 발표 때문에 그렇지 않을까 싶어요. 그러니까 내일은 좀 불안해요. 너무 왔다 갔다 하면 좀 성에 보지 않을까 싶어가지고 내일 어떤 방향으로 갈지 아직은 잘 모르겠어요.
But if you're an airline, you got nowhere else to go. It's a duopoly in this global industry. You know, Boeing and Airbus by and large.
But it puts that kind of thought in flyers' minds now. Yeah. Something else you have to think about.
Yeah, I don't have any concern, but but we'll see. But it's an issue for Boeing because again, this is the issue a couple years ago, which is very serious.
제가 원래 이런 내일처럼 큰 이슈가 있으면 좀 피해요. 왜냐면 사실은 이거야말로 하이리스크 하이리턴인데 물론 많이 보일 수 있는데 근데 그만큼 많이 잃을 수 있으니까 저는 좀 아직 몰라요. 저 같은 초보자는 이럴 때는 좀 피하는 게 낫지 않을까 싶은데 근데 뭐 님들이 하셔도 돼요. 다 본인 차이인데 저는 할지 안 할지 아직 잘 모르겠어요. 좀 고민을 해봐야 될 것 같아요.
AI in focus because TSMC halting a sales decline. That's after AI demand offset what you might call chip malaise. We get more on that from Bloomberg's Charlie Keller.
Denise, fourth quarter revenue with the main chip maker for Apple beat estimates of a decline as demand from artificial intelligence players helped offset sluggish smartphone and laptop chip sales. While it outdid analyst expectations and its own guidance, Taiwan Semi's quarter still fell short of delivering growth. December sales were down 8.4% on the same month a year earlier, offering a mixed outlook for the year ahead. TSMC's most important customer, Apple, has faced headwinds with its latest iPhone generation, especially in the world's biggest mobile market of China. Bloomberg.
All right, thank you, Charlie. And Walmart using artificial intelligence to help people find what they need in those huge stores. This is a new generative AI tool, and it allows you to search for things by use case. For example, you can say, instead of saying repair your jewelry, you can just say, what do I need to fix it?
비트코인은 이거 완전 다른 얘기죠. 저는 그 비트코인 때문에 완전 파산되는 사람들을 되게 많이 봐가지고 비트코인 시장으로 아예 안 가려고요. $4,000불이나 떨어졌어? 아우, 거봐요. 아우. 이건 아우. 생각만 해도 너무 끔찍해요. 아우, 안 돼.
That is expected to shed more direct light on when the Fed could dial back their interest rates. Some of the biggest U.S. banks, they're going to report fourth quarter results on Friday. Right now, the S&P 500 sits less than 30 points shy of its record of 47.96 that we touched a little over 2 years ago after rallying strongly in the last couple of months. In the S&P 500, right now you have 5 of the 11 major industry groups. They are higher right now. Communication services, the biggest gainer, and the biggest drag that is coming from energy shares. We have NYMEX crude right now down about 0.3%, 72.03 a barrel. The 10-year yield, that's unchanged right now, 4%. S&P 500, 10 points. That's up 2.
핸들이 늘어나고 있어요? 제가요? 그런가? 전 너무 정신이 없어서 이건 확인할 시간도 없어요.
live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. We're streaming live on YouTube, so you can handle youtube.com and search Bloomberg Global Radio. Consumer Electronics Show, the CES out in Vegas. 130,000 tech geeks get together out in Vegas and look at all the new gadgets and stuff like that. I've actually done many years to follow up on that. Long lines to get taxes.
Do you go for the pizza or for Vegas?
Of course. Let's be honest. You know, I go to the craps table garage here, and they know exactly where to find me if you're looking for me. We got some smart people out there. Mark Douglas, I'm sorry, the CEO of Mountain. We talked to him a lot about the digital advertising space. He's doing this.
아 진짜요? GT 많이 하셨어요?
Stagwell, former chief strategy officer.
좋겠네요.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us from Vegas. Looks like a pretty
저는 말을 좀 최대한 많이 하려고 하는데 아직은 좀 익숙하지 않아서
Well, I can start. So what we're focused on is essentially performance marketing for some of the world's largest
내일은 아직 모르겠어요. 일단 지원 씨부터 지원 씨 먼저 하고 수익을 보실 거면 그때 얘기해 주세요. 저도 그때 고민해 보겠어요.
and having no real data, no real control over it. So both of us, Mark Penn, his company is kind of the premier performance marketing holding company for agencies, and obviously you guys know Mount invented performance TV, so we're teaming up with an offering here directly at the world's largest brand to now enter the world of performance marketing.
Hey Mark, talk to us about Stagwell, what you guys do there and how you guys can serve advertisers and the networks and really kind of help out with measurement there.
인생 뭐 있나? 저기요. 저 아직 젊어요. 저 아직 젊고 저 아직 그 인생이 좀 길어요. 그러니까 저는 큰 그림을 봐야죠. 물론 저는 지금 해외선물 하고 있는데 좀 조그맣게 무리 없이 오버 없이 나중에 은행에서 연락 오는 거 좀 하기 싫어요. 저는 아니야. 천천히 인생 한 방이죠. 저기요. 몇 살이세요? 혹시 중이병 걸리셨어요? 아니야. 인생 한 방인데 그러니까 좀 차근차근 좀 자유롭게보다는 지혜롭게 살아봐야죠.
Right, and so what we have been has been a more performance oriented, and the primary measurement of that is going to be sales. We do have attribution tools, we do have location data, so we generally know if you've gone to the store or not gone to the store. But by and large, the performance guys are really rigorous. That means that of the 2,000 we'll be able to track how yours is.
Now, Mark, you're making it easy as far as here, same name. You guys are out in the middle of it. CES, talk to us about some of the things that you're seeing there. What are some of the hot items that catch your eye?
I've been on the show floor. I mean, I honestly.
아니요. 저 이제 로또 안 할게요. 워낙 이런 쪽에서 운이 아예 없어서 제 오늘 다른 데 쓰려고요. 저는 돈 운이 별로 없긴 하는데 인복이 좋아요. 주변에 괜찮은 사람이 너무 많아서 이걸로만 만족해요. 수익을 많이 너무 좋아요. 축하해요. 그럼 내일부터 소고기 먹어야죠, 그쵸? 한우 먹읍시다.
I would definitely agree with that, and I'll bring my transparency to witness this AI.
So, hey, Mark Douglas, talk to us about just kind of looking out at the metas of the world, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons. Give us a state of the advertising market out there in terms of linear versus digital, because we hear the linear television is just brutal, and it just seems like it's in a secular decline.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. One of the, but the number of people watching TV is not changing. And so it's the business model.
리듬 타고 타기 하기 위해서 조금 신나는 노래 좀 들어봐야겠죠.
They're having to change how they acquire media. That actually, by the way, kind of fits right in on what Mark P. and Ken and I are talking about in terms of the brands realize this. And they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to rely on linear data. I want something holistic. I think FCC made a really interesting announcement. They announced this year they're going to 60% of all ads that they serve, NBC, Peacock, CNBC,
이런 파란 음악처럼 수익이 이렇게 팍팍팍팍 올랐으면 좋겠어요.
Like Stagwell and Mountain are focusing on, and that's a huge announcement. I mean, they're basically saying like they expect $40 billion of their ad spend to now be digitally targeted across brands. That's an announcement they made.
저도 밥상 좀 들려주고 싶은데 근데 안 돼요. 차단당해요. 유튜브 씨는 되게 까다로운 플랫폼이라서 바로 차단 걸려요. 차단 걸리고 제 채널 아예 삭제해버릴 수 있으니까 조금 안전하게 가야 되죠. 전 약간 또 뉴진스처럼 뉴진스 같은 음악을 좀 들려주고 싶은데 들려주면 바로 끝이에요. 저도 이번에 유튜브 하면서 이거 알았어요. 그냥 아무 노래 들을 수 있다고 생각했는데 그렇진 않아요.
Kicking off the year where the whole industry starts growing again.
And we're going to have a big political season. Remember, there's going to be $12 billion on top of regular advertising here.
And does that still go to primarily local broadcast?
It is now more distributed across all platforms, but I would still say it's more, it used to be about 80% local broadcast. I think that'll come down more like 50-60%, with the 40% going to as local as you can get your digital.
All right, guys. All right, thanks so much for joining us, both of you guys. Mark Douglas, President and CEO of Mountain, and Mark Penn, President of Stagwell. They're out there at the CES, Consumer Electronics Show, out in Las Vegas, as is seemingly everybody else in almost every any industry that has any kind of technology aspirations, one way or the other. They seem to find themselves out there.
I definitely need to. I've only been to Vegas once.
A lot of people that that just like to see the latest gadgets, the tech geeks, they go out and they walk the floor. Now, a lot of people will go out there, like myself, never walk the floor because we have meetings set up in your hotel, and then you just kind of do meeting.
Yeah, so you go with a game plan?
Because everybody's there. You have a whole schedule, and the problem is getting around. So you kind of have to get a car because the lines are just crazy. But it gets.
주원님 그런 취향이시군요.
Right now, let's head down to Washington D.C. We'll get world and national news with.
All right, thank you, Paul. Yemen's Houthis launched their largest attack to date on ships in the Red Sea, forcing a response from U.S. and UK forces patrolling that waterway.
저는 사실 영국 락인지 아니면 뭐 포스트펑크 같은 거 좋아하긴 하는데 그것도 못 들려주겠어요. 아쉽게도. 그래도 지금은 좀 잔잔한 조금이라도 잔잔한 음악을 좀 들으면 어떨까 싶어요. 보시죠. 한시 반인데 좀 이럴 때는 좀 잔잔한 음악을 들어야죠. 뭐 물론 시장이 새벽 5시까지 열려 있지만 영국 사람들은 음악 진짜 잘해요. 어쩌면 이렇게 잘하지? 안 그래도 저도 지금 타이밍을 보고 있는데 언제쯤 매매할지 일단은 보시죠. 그리고 중요한 뉴스는 제 객관적인 생각인데 뭐 이런 중요한 뉴스는 올렸으니까 참고하시고 고려하세요. 오케스트라 분위기 좋아하세요? 너무 싫어하지 않아요? 뭐 물론 오케스트라 분위기는 약간 좀 시끄러운 이미지가 있긴 하는데 저는 좀 싫어할 것 같아요. 뭐야? 제 컴퓨터 참 이상한 것 같아요. 잠시만요. 도나갈 아하, 그러시군요. 저는 사실 운전면허가 없어서 버스 다니고 있는데 제가 버스 안에서 이런 음악을 듣고 노래하면 되게 이상한 사람으로 보겠죠? 뭐 그래도 사람의 취향이 있으니까요. 존중할게요. 옛날 가수, 너무 좋죠. 저는 이문세님을 되게 좋아하고, 뭐, 김광석은 기본이죠. 여자 가수 중에서, 그나마 김완성님? 그 사람이 누구였더라? 늦기 전에 잠시만요. 돈가스를 추천하고 싶은데 가수 이름이 생각이 안 나요. 잠시만요. 멋있게 봐야겠다. 근데 불길한 기분이 드네요. 혹시 또 인터넷 나가리 하면 되면 어떡해? 지금 좀 너무 불안한데요? 페이지가 안 열려요. 저는 이렇게 생기는데 약간 좀 외국인 사람인데 의외로 가사를 되게 자주 봐요. 의미 있는 가사 엄청 좋아하고 약간 감성 스토리가 있는 가수, 스토리가 있는 노래.
SEC ruling on Bitcoin exchange traded funds. That's expected today. Could generate interest in crypto markets.
SK네트워크이
Madison Fowler and JP Morgan Chase meantime.
그러니까요. 이렇게 계속 왔다 갔다 하네요.
Sweet spot when it comes to equity markets now, where you're looking at moderating inflation, really the nascent stages of earnings growth. Yes.
그러니까 혹시 평선이 갑자기 크면 이해해 주세요.
And the Nasdaq 100 up 45 points. That's a rise right now, 0.3%. While JP Morgan expected to go for earnings season on Friday, revenue growth sevenfold the average pace of its peers. It may well prove to be the exception to a pretty tough backdrop for most of the U.S. lenders. Again, earnings season kicking off with the financials on Friday. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio.
여기는 어디죠? 뭐 아무리 제가 한국말을 써도 글도 한국말인데 과연 여기 한국인가요?
Bitcoin ETF, which space are really waiting for the seal of credibility here in the U.S. trading, at least. Our next guest is Greg Taylor. He's the CIO of Purpose Investments. Purpose Investments launched Purpose Bitcoin ETF, the first direct custody Bitcoin ETF in the world in 2021, and they've been managing it. Hey, Greg, we all got a head fake yesterday. First of all, thanks for joining us, Greg. We all got a head fake yesterday with, Twitter, X, whatever it is, putting out a tweet that maybe they did get the approval, then apparently was not. What do you expect to happen today with the season?
Yeah, I think but I think this is a space that it does feel like I can't remember almost 3 years ago, and I think we've had a pretty good track record on it too. So it feels like the case that the SEC will be cool, and I think that's interesting for the entire space.
Now, Greg, take us through this approval process. There's a lot of moving parts for that. Can you walk us through it?
Well, I think the big thing I can just use is and they were really trying to show a good, safe system. Really, when we approve, the OSC,
아 맞다. 제가 어디서 들어봤는데 그 아시아 쪽에서 쌀 가격이 상승하다고 하는데 이거 좀 되게 큰 문제 되지 않을까 싶어. 왜 사실 물가가 저는 한국에 대해서만 알고 있는데 한국 같은 경우는 물가가 되게 좀 큰 편이잖아요. 사실상. 근데 쌀 가격이 또 올라가면 이거 되게 큰 문제 발생하지 않을까 싶어서 그러니까 나중에 해외 선물 그 거래에서도 되게 큰 영향을 주지 않을까. 저 사실 한국 사람 아니지만 근데 제가 쌀 되게 좋아하고 거의 맨날 먹어요. 근데 그 쌀 가격이 올라가면 되게 큰 부담을 주겠죠?
a day, but we've also had big days where we've had inflows and outflows around 100 million. And I think the big credibility to the system that we've designed and done this is that we've not lost a single coin through this. We've also not really impacted the market around
그쵸.
so I think it's all
죄송해요. 와인을 좀 마셔가지고 발음이 안 나와요. 인플레이션도 그 문제가 있는데 근데 한국 사람들한테 쌀, 라면, 소주 제일 큰 재료잖아요. 재료보다는 그냥 제품? 근데 이거까지 올라가면 되게 큰 문제 되겠죠? 에헤이, 음주 방송이라뇨. 한 잔. 전 술에 되게 강해요. 최근에 금주를 했는데 친구 영향이 되게 커가지고 조금씩 먹고 있어요. 맞아, 소비 제품에 가격이 올라가면 나라에 문제 있지 않을까 싶어. 근데 이거 제 개인적인 생각입니다.
Well, at the end of the day, it is pricing for us 2 years, but really at the end of the day, you really want to investors involved, and that's something that is really hard. So think the SEC finally so this is a positive development that should be to further advancements, maybe excellencies
Right, so does from the SEC, does that basically mean that it's yes for everyone else? I mean, what does that mean that they say yes for everyone?
But I can see which is again very similar to where we have with similar custodians with the Gemini and Coinbase and similar trading partners and similar structures. So I think at the end of the day they will approve all of them versus just one-offs. And then it's going to be, as we're seeing, a competition to see who's going to go on and what's the market share. We were fortunate to be the first in Canada, and that was a good advantage to go. But you really, at the end of the day, then have to deliver. There's one thing being first to market, but if you have investors that have that experience, then that's something where you can lose a lot of credibility and really be a mark on the whole ecosystem. So I think
이 음악은요, 약간 EDM? EDM이라고 하면 되죠?
Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Greg Taylor, he's the CIO of Purpose Investments. So they're good folks up in Canada. They came out with the world's first direct custody Bitcoin ETF. They did that in 2021. So Canadians ahead of the US market here by almost.
그쵸. 음악에 빠져들어가는 거 괜찮은데 해외 선물은 그렇지 않아요. 하지 마세요. 하지 마시고 이거는 위험해요. 빠져들면 안 돼요.
This is some company news right now.
All right, thank you, Paul. We have the drama at Boeing intensifying. The FAA now says those 737 MAX 9s do remain grounded until everyone is sure that they are completely safe. And George Ferguson, senior aerospace and airline analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence, says the big issue to watch is if the problem of the door plug coming out mid-flight spreads to other models.
We end up having to park it for the MAX 8 fleet. That would be a major issue right now. I don't see that happening. It looks like it's not going to interrupt deliveries in 2024 in the form it is right now. That's what we're watching very closely.
And Ferguson with us here on Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Mateo. Boeing shares higher right now. Electric vehicles in the headlights. And Arno Anslis, CFO at Volkswagen, says the shift to EVs isn't easy, and having its own in-house battery supply is key there.
We are convinced that having our own battery supply in the company is very important. And this has really three pillars. One, a unified cell, then our own production, and we secure our raw materials.
And Anslis with us there in a live special simulcast on Bloomberg Radio and Television. Job cuts over at Amazon. Amazon laying off hundreds of employees. This is in its Prime Video and studio businesses. Amazon shares are higher right now. And forget about mixed martial arts. Mark Zuckerberg getting into livestock farming. Meta CEO raising cattle says he'll feed them macadamia meal and give them beer to drink. He posted all about it on Instagram from his estate in Hawaii, where he will raise them. Why beer? Well, he raises wagyu that's type 4. Comes from that high.
제가요? 저는 그렇지 않아요. 저는 되게 신중하게 해외 선물 되게 신중하게 하는 스타일이라 사람을 어떻게 보시는 거야? 조아님이 혹시 음악이 궁금하시면 거기 영상 밑에 링크를 보내줄게요. 남길게요. 저거는 스포티파이인데 스포티파이 하시면 거기서 들으셔도 돼요.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, looking at these markets here, just a little bit of green on the screen here. The S&P, the Dow about 1/10 of 1%, the Nasdaq up about 0.3 of 1%. Yields also pretty steady. The 10-year Treasury is at 4.01%. WTI was higher, was at 73 and change, with about $72.30 here, pretty flat on the day for WTI crude oil. And Bitcoin also unchanged here, 45,400 again, ahead of that expected SEC ruling later this afternoon. So we'll see how we go with that. Right now, let's sit down and watch it. World and national news with.
All right, thank you, Paul. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley will be the only two candidates on the GOP debate stage in Iowa tonight. Leading candidate Donald Trump will be skipping tonight's debate. He'll instead hold a town hall in Des Moines. The Biden administration ordered all cabinet members and secretaries to notify the White House Chief of Staff's office if they are unable to perform their duties. This after the Pentagon waited days to inform President Biden and top officials. The defense secretary was in the hospital and had transferred power to his deputy. Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Morgan.
What we've seen from the following top of mind is that they struggle with interagency. They are very insular within the White House. When you have individuals who should be the transportation highway of information flowing into the White House and out of the White House, it does seem like that's where things seem to break down.
Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Morgan reporting the defense secretary of the White House had prostate cancer surgery on December 22nd and was re-admitted to the hospital New Year's Day because of complications. From live streaming to livestock, a big tech CEO with a new passion. Bloomberg's Steve Rappaport fills us in.
Mark Zuckerberg is now a cattle man, raising cows on his ranch in Hawaii. Meta Platform CEO says the animals will feed on macadamia meal and wash it down with beer, both homegrown on his estate. Zuckerberg announced his farming ambitions in an Instagram post alongside a photo of him dining on steak. The billionaire businessman writing his goals to create some of the highest quality beef in a process that will be local and vertically.
그 링크를 추가했어요. 확인해보세요. 아 진짜 이런 음악 듣고 그냥 지금 바로 바닷가에 갔으면 진짜 좋겠다. 아니다. 지금 가면 뒤지기 좋겠죠? 아니야. 지금 가지 마세요. 지금은 가지 마시고 조금 따뜻해지면 그때 가면 훨씬 좋아요. 말이 나오는 김에 날씨 좀 봅시다. 내일 같은 경우는 영하 아니네? 오더네. 내일 좀 온도가 올라가고 있네.
Its alumni include princesses.
일요일이 좋네요. 일요일이 좋은데 질던데 근데 비가 와요. 비 대신에 눈이 왔으면 좋겠어요. 눈은 털 짜증나니까요. 그리고 예쁘잖아요. 근데 비는 진짜 너무 얇고 짜증나고 여름은 오히려 좋아요.
got it all here, folks, for you. So keep me updated on our good friends at Eton College over in England. S&P 500 up 0.2%. Your Nasdaq give us a little bit more.
제가 사실 미세먼지에 대해서 어느 정도 언제쯤부터 잘 모르겠는데 이젠 관심 없어요. 그냥 뭐 어쩔 수 없지 뭐. 그냥 이렇게 살아가야지 생각하고 물론 지금 미세먼지는 매우 나쁨이지만
Why were the economists so wrong? What are the economists getting wrong?
Isn't this a
slam dunk time to buy U.S. Treasuries?
Soft landing, hard landing, no landing. I don't know.
True. What the heck does that
주원님 얘기하셨잖아요. 인생은 한 분이죠. 뭐 이런 얘기 하셨잖아요. 이건 뭐 그쵸. 아무래도 건강에 안 좋긴 하는데 우리가 해결할 문제는 아닌 것 같고 뭐 아니요. 사실 우리가 해결해야 할 문제인데 근데 이거 미세먼지는 한국 때문에 벌어진 거 아니잖아요. 좀 다른 나라에서 계속 오기 때문에 거기서는 우리가 뭐 할 수 없죠. 거기에 워낙 자도 많고 공장 같은 거 되게 많으니까 미세먼지는 발생할 수밖에 없죠.
Juniper up by 1.8%. You mentioned Bitcoin. Right now we've got Bitcoin lower by 0.3%, 45,301 right now.
제 고향 같은 경우는 사람들은 미세먼지라는 단어를 자체가 몰라요. 이게 뭐야? 항상 그래요. 이런 것도 있어요? 우리는 좀 자연이 많다 보니까 뭐 풀이든 숲이든 이렇게 되게 많기 때문에 미세먼지 들어와도 그 숲 때문에 그 도시에 안 들어와요. 네, 공기가 좀 좋은 편이지만 근데 문제는 좋은 공기고 좋은 공기만 있어요. 다른 거 뭐 없어요. 뭐 일단은 지금 차트 보니까 계속 왔다 갔다 하긴 하는데 별 변화가 없기 때문에 일단은 좀 강아지를 좀 산책해봐야 될 것 같아요. 2시지만 좀 강아지랑 산책하고 다시 들어올게요. 좀 쉬고 계세요.
James, I'm just shocked. I mean, you and Balchunas are in the sweet spot. You guys have a career just mapped out for you. ETF has just been extraordinary. The fund flows over the last decade. I mean, you can't get out of the way of it, can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an $8 trillion market right now. There's $8 trillion in U.S. ETFs right now.
Yeah,
over $10 trillion if you go to the global market. So
just amazing. All right, so you guys are in the sweet spot. Good for you. Tell us about this Bitcoin ETF. I thought we had one yesterday, but what's happening here, and what do you expect today?
Yeah, you and I both thought we had one yesterday. I was actually like coming on radio, and I was on radio live when Gary said that it was actually the account had been hacked, so I didn't even know how to react. But when it first came out, I was like, this is strange. They usually don't announce things via their Twitter, but it was the official SEC Twitter, and I made sure of that before I retweeted it and shared it with other people. That said, we were never expecting an approval yesterday. We had largely been expecting the approval to come after market close today. We've seen some action in the last 30 minutes. We saw a bunch of these filers request for acceleration. All this means is they're requesting to list tomorrow. So it's not a done deal yet, but it's as close to a done deal as we can possibly get.
Yeah, talk about some of that action. How much did it go up? How much did it drop down? Then after they found out it's false.
Yeah, ironically, the tweet and the approval didn't really send it flying out of chart. It went up $1,200 or so, and then it went down below where it was trading right before the announcement, actually. So I guess that kind of shows maybe this was a little bit priced in, or maybe more people were skeptical, even more skeptical than I was, and didn't really buy into it. But that said, it's been pretty volatile the last couple of days. A lot of the stuff has been down today. That we're still expecting approvals after market today.
So how is this going to unfold? So let's just assume we do get the approval today, coming up for close sometime. What happens tomorrow, the next several days,
Yeah, I'm excited. We've never had a situation like this. You talk about ETFs are growing. We've never had a situation to study the ETF market and see what do 11 ETFs come to market that are very not differentiated that well. It's very hard to differentiate when all you're doing is holding one asset class, right? It's just going to be fascinating to see how this is. It's going to be like a study of Darwinism, essentially. So what we're going to be watching is for who's going to get the most volume on day 1 and day 2. Grayscale obviously has the assets and volume they already coming over with. But also where flow is going to go. I expect Grayscale to see significant number of outflows. How much of those flows are going to go into the ETFs? Also, you can't discount some of these big players. BlackRock, and I know some other players, they have money lined up on the sidelines ready to come in. We have good sources saying that there's significant amounts of capital that are going in. The question is, are these hundreds of millions, billions of dollars that are coming in day 1 or day 2? Is that new money to Bitcoin, or is that money that's shifting from something like a Bitcoin ETF in Canada or another version of Bitcoin type exposure? So there's no way to know how much is this net new buying versus shifting of capital, but we're expecting serious numbers to come out of the next 2 days.
When you mentioned that, were you mentioning referring to those last That's a different ballgame too.
Yeah, no, that is the number one way that they try to differentiate themselves as far as I'm concerned. Right? I think we have 6 or 7 of these guys that are waiving fees 0%. BlackRock is waiving their fees down to 0.12 for 6 months for $5 billion. So everyone is basically just trying to jockey. We're calling it the Kentucky Derby because and jockeying is the best way to look at this. Like everyone is doing everything. There's commercials coming out. People are cutting fees. A couple of people lowered fees to 25 basis points. And now we're seeing it even drop lower. This morning, ARK went down to 20 basis points for the long-term fee. BlackRock cut their fee as well. And everyone's doing fee waivers. There was only a couple of people doing fee waivers as of last week, and now there's 7 or 8 of them. So everyone's just trying to jockey for position and make sure they aren't too far behind somebody else. Because, right, if you have a relationship with somebody and they're saying, we're going to put money into your ETF, if you're charging double the price of another product, and I'm an advisor or I'm somebody that's been working with you, I'm like, I can't in good conscience put my money into your fund when something charges less than half of what this is. But if it's 5 basis points or 10 basis points or something, maybe that conversation is very different. So that's how I'm expecting it to play out.
All right, very good. James, thanks so much for giving us a couple minutes of your time. I know you're super, super busy. This is a big day for the ETF space, big day for the crypto space. How much money is in ETFs these days?
$8 trillion in the U.S. market.
Unbelievable. And it's you and Balchunas covering it for Bloomberg Intelligence. So we're fortunate to have your research. James Seifert covers all the ETF stuff for Bloomberg Intelligence. Right now, let's get back out to Vegas, the high rollers table at the Bellagio. Woo Jin Ho, he covers all the technology stuff for Bloomberg Intelligence. Wooj, first question. What hotel are you staying at?
I'm at the Alara.
Which one?
The Hilton Alara. Keeps me out of trouble.
All right. I'm a Bellagio guy myself, but anyway, good stuff. Wooj, talk to us about this deal that we see with HPE and this other. I mean, does this make sense for the sector? Because I know there's a lot of uncertainty out there just about kind of what this deal means for the companies here.
Sure. So for HPE, they've been looking for core computing business for quite some time now. One of the things that they've done several years back is the Rubra acquisition, Close Guard, but that's one of the more profitable businesses for HPE. in making this acquisition of Juniper, they've actually doubled down on networking. The networking business is as large as the compute business, and the hope over the long term is to drive better margin expansion going forward.
What do you think about the price here? And I guess the bigger issue is this a good use of cash, good use of capital?
That's a really good question, and I think that's one of the reasons why investors were not too happy, reflected by the share price, right? I think there was an expectation of some money coming due from the H3C divestiture, roughly about $3 billion, coming back into better capital returns. Now that being said, the question is that with that $14 billion used for Juniper, will that drive multiple expansion? Let me give you a case in point. If you think about traditional Dell, HP, and HPE, they trade roughly around 8 to 9 times forward earnings. The networking guys, on average, trade roughly about 15 times forward earnings, 15, 16 times. If it goes back, if we start reverting to the mean to the two multiples, you could probably get about a 30% valuation bump if this deal works out for HPE's favor. So.
Yeah, we're going to see about that. Hey, Wooj, hang on, because we're going to talk to the principals here in this transaction. That's Wooj and Ho, covers all the tech stuff for Bloomberg Intelligence. Because we're going to go back out to Vegas, stay in Vegas, if you will, because we've got the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, Antonio Neri. He's going to sit down with Ed Ludlow, Caroline Hyde, and talk about this transaction. Again, HPE acquiring Juniper here. And it's, as Wooj and Ho just said, the Bloomberg Intelligence analyst, there's a lot of strategic rationale for this transaction. But again, as Wooj just mentioned, there's a lot of folks out there that are saying, gee, is this the right transaction? Is this the right use of capital for this company at this time? But now, let's go right out to head out to this interview with Hewlett-Packard CEO Antonio Neri. He's with Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde in Las Vegas.
Welcome to our Bloomberg television and radio audiences to Bloomberg Technology. On Tuesday, HPE, it announced it has agreed to buy Juniper Networks for $14 billion in a move to expand its presence in networking in particular. But there is also some skepticism being raised by Wall Street, as we saw with the price action. HPE CEO Antonio Neri joins us now to talk us through the reasoning. What attracted you to Juniper Networks? Why focus in data centers expansion? Yes. Networking, cloud networking presence expansion? Yes. Any worry about overlap here, Antonio?
Well, good afternoon, Carol. Thanks for having me. Yesterday was an exciting day for HPE, our shareholders, our customers, and our employees. We are reshaping the entire networking industry by combining two amazing companies with amazing complementary assets to capture the inflection point we see today, particularly with the AI. So we believe this is going to turbocharge the strategy that I have put in place 5 years ago, and we have been executing with discipline, and then ultimately give us the relevancy in this massive inflection point. And Juniper brings to us the complementary capabilities we didn't have across the networking portfolio. But think about it this way. We are actually creating a new core business for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, which will represent more than a third of the company revenue, and most importantly, almost 60% of the company profit. And we will address a market that's growing, which represents approximately $180 billion. And this acquisition, this proposed acquisition, is going to be accretive post-close day one. So it's an exciting time for everyone. I think the market needs to understand it, but they will realize that we're going to challenge the 20 years incumbency with modern architecture and drive better solutions for our customers.
Let's talk about those solutions. Let's talk about that modern focus, because Cisco basically is the gorilla in the room that we're talking about. And Juniper Networks isn't a new asset. It's an older one that has failed to gain that market share from some of these competitors in the switching and the networking space. Why with you will it be different?
Yeah, well, I think we need to understand the business a little bit more in depth, right? So obviously when you think about the internet era, Juniper today powers a lot of the internet connectivity. And so that's an enormous foundation. When we think about the enterprise business, they have done a fantastic job driving what I call the AI-driven disruption. Obviously, we have a powerful platform with Mist. We have an amazing platform with HP Aruba Networking. Both are complementary because we have the scale, the reach, both from a technology and go-to-market perspective, but also they have been innovating what I call the next generation of AI-driven secure networking. So we're going to bring both together and deliver a better solution for customers. On the other side, you need to understand that also bring an amazing silicon ASIC capabilities for high-performance networking. We already in HPE have been focused on AI, interconnect fabric. This will turbocharge our strategy because we are the market leader in supercomputing. And when you talk about AI and talk about large language models, talk about foundation models, whether it's weather or whether it's other types of applications, you need high-performance silicon. And the core foundation of that is the network. We're going to create that network solution. We are going to add the data layer on top of that, and we're going to deliver this secure, unified experience to our amazing platform called HPE GreenLake.
Sticking with the ultimate technology and the profitability of it, Antonio, the margin difference that we see within the networking businesses. Juniper's is lower than yours. How do you bring that up? Is that about ensuring that you're within the AI sphere, you're being able to charge more for what you're providing?
Actually, Carol, you have to look at two levels of margin. You have to look at the gross margin level and have super high gross margin level because of the entire ownership of the stack from silicon to infrastructure to software, similar to what we do in campus and branch. But we're going to bring to them the efficiency in order to drive the operating margin leverage by reducing cost around the ability to go and execute. So we believe the first step is the cost synergies. That's why the synergy cost more than pay off for the capital that we are taking to pay for this transaction. And then on top of that, you're going to have the revenue synergies, a higher gross margin, the ultimately the scale of our reach will drive better operating margins for our shareholders. And that will translate into free cash flow because remember, this transaction is accretive day one for both a non-GAAP EPS and free cash flow basis.
We want to remind our Bloomberg TV and radio audiences we are sat down with the HPE CEO, Antonio Neri, and you're talking about that cost discipline. Where do the costs come out? Is it people? Is it jobs?
The cost actually is many things, to be fair. I mean, the biggest part will be in the G&A side. You know, HPE and my team have had a tremendous track record in driving operating leverage across the company. When I became CEO of HPE, our non-GAAP earnings per share was 96 cents. We exit 2023 to more than $2.12. And a lot of that was gross margin expansion to pivot the portfolio, which this transaction turbocharges, right? We're talking about gross margin, higher growth areas, and then reducing the cost to run the business through automation and efficiency. So that G&A portion will be a huge booster to the Juniper operating margin. And remember also, we're going to give them access to capabilities they couldn't deliver themselves in terms of as a service model, cloud, scale. And last but not least, the go-to-market. HPE has a crown jewel, which is a go-to-market reach everywhere in the world, 172 countries, a scale they couldn't imagine themselves.
Antonio, we've got about a minute left. $14 billion in cash is a lot of money. What about the buybacks? What about the dividends? What about how else you're able to pay back when you've got a heavier debt load?
Well, first of all, this transaction is $13.6 billion. I know people like to run things out, but we are committed, number one, to maintain our credit rating, which is very important to us, and we believe that's absolutely doable. Number two, we are maintaining the share buyback commitment we gave at the Security Analyst meeting in October, and the dividends, which is a core component of our capital return to shareholders. And then over the next 2 years, post-closing, we're going to return to 2 times leverage on EBITDA and pay down the debt. And one component of that pay down the debt is obviously the proceeds from our H3C divestiture in China, which has proceeded very well. And obviously the synergies that we're going to drive through the free cash flow generation on both the Juniper side.
여러분, 제가 다시 왔습니다. 다시 왔는데 밖에는 사실 엄청 추워요. 강아지도 너무 추워가지고 집에 얼른 들어왔어요. 사실 지금 보니까 차트 보니까 그렇게 재밌는 거 없는 것 같아서 오늘 거래할 의미가 없을 것 같아요. 할 의미가 없어서 그러니까 아마 오늘 방송은 오늘까지 하고 내일 다시 하시죠? 근데 내일은 벌써부터 불안해요. 워낙 큰 이슈가 되게 많아가지고 내일도 중요한 뉴스를 검색해서 모아보고 그때는 수익이 좀 보시죠. 잘 됐으면 좋겠어요. 주아님도요. 화이팅 하시고 오늘은 좀 쉬세요. 쉬고 에너지 충전하고 내일 다시 하시죠. 그럼 일단 제가 이만 가겠습니다. 오늘 재밌었어요. 감사합니다. 내일도 뵈시죠. 네.